Chapter 1023. This junior's spiritual awareness is in trouble. I have been relying on the spirit congealing pill. Li Hung began to talk, as if he had found an elder he could confide in. He poured out all his troubles to Li Hung. Li Hung also had tremendous pressure in his heart. In the sect, everything was maintained on the basis of his cultivation of the cross-border spiritual awareness cultivation method. Even when he was appointed as the young sect master at the beginning, Li Hung himself didn't know why. At that time, like others, he secretly guessed that he was the illegitimate child of Sect Master Li. Later, he gradually discovered that Sect Master Li did not take special care of him, and other people never treated him as a young sect master, which made Li Hung have some doubts. Finally, when the clouds cleared and the moon was seen, the cultivation of the cross-border spiritual awareness cultivation method had a small achievement, and when he contacted Senior Lu Fengzi, everything changed dramatically. From power to resources, and even the usefulness of speaking, there were qualitative changes. Li Hung suddenly understood why he became the young sect master. It was just a tradition left behind by the previous sect. If Li Hung couldn't succeed in his cultivation, it would not take many years for him to be abolished from the position of young sect master and become an ordinary disciple of Taishaman. In this case, it was impossible for Li Hung to say that there was no pressure, especially knowing that his spirit congealing pill was exchanged from Yang Chun at a huge price in the sect, and the Foreign Affairs Hall Master of the sect even bowed his head in front of Yang Chun several times. All the hopes seemed to be attached to the young sect master. Even if Li Hung can still often contact Senior Lu Fengzi, Li Hung has always been aware of the crisis, especially when the consumption of the spirit congealing pill is getting larger and larger, and the stock of the sect is getting smaller and smaller. Li Hung is even more anxious. Old Ancestor. This disciple pleads with the Old Ancestor to give me a way to cure this disciple's spiritual awareness, so that the sect will no longer be blackmailed by that cruel and unscrupulous guy. This disciple will be grateful. After saying his fear and worry, Li Hung made this request almost in tears. Good child, you have been wrong. When Senior Lu Fengzi passed these words to Li Hung, Yang Chun almost vomited on the other side. However, he still had to continue acting, so Yang Chun still maintained that kind attitude and comforted him. It seems that this is the source of your inner demon. Hearing Senior Lu Fengzi's caring words, Li Hung's eyes turned sour and tears almost flowed out. Other people only saw Li Hung's limitless glory as the young sect master. Who could imagine the depression in his heart? Ancestor, please take pity on me and help me settle this so that the sect will not be controlled by others. Li Hung was practically begging while crying. His attitude was so sincere that he had even unknowingly changed the way he addressed him from senior to ancestor. Alas, Ancestor Lu Fengzi let out a long sigh, and he seemed to carry a strand of indescribable regret. This long sigh almost made Li Hung desperate. He only felt that a ladle of cold water was poured from his head to the soles of his feet, and his whole body was cold. Your trouble, in fact, is the right way to solve it with the spirit congealing pill. Ancestor Lu Fengzi's next words made Li Hung feel a little hopeful in his heart. Since this is the right way, then there should be a non-right way, right? As long as you endure for a few decades, everything will be calm. At that time, as long as you concentrate on your cultivation, with your aptitude, you will be able to communicate with me calmly in a mere 400 or 500 years. Why do you have to be in a hurry? Ancestor Lu Fengzi's words were full of persuasion, and there was no lack of meaning for Li Hung to endure for a while. Ancestor, you don't know how much property that hateful thief has extorted from my sect for a mere spirit congealing pill. When Li Hung heard the meaning of these words, it seemed that there was really another way, and his heart was filled with hope. Seeing that the attitude of the ancestor was still not very firm, he immediately began to lobby and increase his persuasiveness. Oh, extort my Taishaman? Does he want to die? Ancestor Lu Fengzi was just a very ordinary sentence, but it was very domineering, and the confidence in it made Li Hung feel very comfortable. However, this is obviously not the time to enjoy this. but to arouse the ancestor's common enemy and tell him another way to solve the problem of spiritual awareness, a way to get rid of the control of Yang Chun and not be controlled by others. That thief is the only fifth-grade alchemist in the mortal world. Now the sect can only find him as an alchemist who can refine the spirit congealing pill. For the sake of a younger generation, the sect has to be extorted by him. Li Hung gritted his teeth and said, and several seniors of the sect even bow their heads to humiliation. This disciple can't stand it. Li Hung called him a thief, which made Yang Chun want to curse back in his mind. But unfortunately, this can only exist in his thoughts and cannot be implemented. It's just a spirit congealing pill. He dares to extort several kinds of 7th-grade fire seeds from the sect, and he also brought an ancient secret medicine garden space full of hundreds of thousands of years old spirit medicine. In order to enhance his persuasiveness, Li Hung even counted the 7th-grade fire seed to buy the pill recipe to the head of the spirit congealing pill and told Ancestor Lu Fengzi, "This boy is too much." Sure enough, as Li Hung had expected, old Ancestor Lu Fengzi was infuriated after hearing this. However, even if he was, Li Hung wouldn't be able to see it. If he doesn't ascend, then it's fine. Once he ascends to the spiritual world, this old man will personally tear him to pieces. Ancestor Lu Fengzi was already angry. His anger erupted like a volcano, and his surging momentum almost crushed Li Hung's spiritual awareness into pieces. However, Li Hung didn't feel any fear at the moment. Although this pressure made him extremely uncomfortable, Li Hung's heart was full of joy. He successfully provoked the anger of the ancestor. He thought that the ancestor who couldn't do anything to Yang Chun in the mortal world would directly improve his ability and let him deal with Yang Chun. Tell Li Tiancheng, let him send someone to kill this guy immediately and take back all the things. The ancestor was really not a person who was bullied, and he was about to take action immediately. Ancestor, the sect master would rather endure humiliation for the sake of this younger generation junior, but he also wants to keep a person who can refine the spirit congealing pill. His love for this younger generation junior is beyond measure. Li Hung's affectation was simply good, and people couldn't help but be convinced as long as this younger generation junior still needs the spirit congealing pill, I will have to let the thief exploit and extort me. There is another way to solve your problem. Under a series of foreshadowing, Li Hung finally heard the sound of nature he wanted to hear. Chapter 1024. This method is somewhat contrary to the tradition of our Taoism. Before saying the specific method, Ancestor Lu Fengzi still pointed out the drawbacks of this method, which was also the reason why he had been unwilling to teach Li Hung. To put it more seriously, it is like a devil's method, which is against reason and nature. At this time, Li Hung was smart enough not to say much, but just listened quietly. From the words of the ancestor, he could tell that the ancestor had not made up his mind and was still struggling. If he spoke, it might affect the ancestor's judgment. Once the ancestor took back his decision, wouldn't he lose more than he would gain? I don't recommend you to use this method. Ancestor Lu Fengzi's words were sincere and sincere. His words of persuasion had to be clear from the beginning. You are the young master of the sect with a great future. As the future master, you'd better not delay your great future because of some trivial feelings. I understand. Li Hung put on a posture of listening to the teachings, and then responded to the ancestor. I will not use it without authorization. I will report to the master first and ask the master to make a decision. Obviously, these words made Ancestor Lu Fengzi feel that Li Hung respected his master. Finally, he did not say anything more and said the method. In fact, there should be records in the ancient books of the sect. Go back to the Sutras Pavilion of the sect and find a Devil Heart Sutra. It is a trophy obtained by the seniors of the sect when they killed a devil. Some things in it should be useful for your current situation. Thank you, Ancestor. Li Hung was overjoyed. The ancestor finally told him the method. How could he not be ecstatic? If it were not for the fact that he had taken a few spirit-congealing pills this time and was not unable to hold on, Li Hung would have disconnected from the ancestor immediately and then returned to the sect to find the Devil Heart Sutra. What followed was a series of requests. The old ancestor answered almost everything he knew, but Li Hung was actually not in the mood for this. After he hurriedly asked all the questions that the elders had asked him, he looked exhausted and cut off the connection. Of course, in addition to his own desire to disconnect, it was also related to the pressure he had suffered from ancestor Lu Fengzi twice this time. In any case, the result was the same. After disconnecting, young sect master Li Hung immediately fell unconscious and fell into a deep sleep. This situation had happened many times, and the people who served beside him were not surprised. However, the young master had just fainted, and immediately a Taishaman elder appeared outside the door, which still gave them a shock. The elder that appeared was naturally a core elder that Li Hung was protecting in secret. Li Hung's performance just now was completely the same as before. He immediately knew that Li Hung had successfully contacted Senior Lu Fengzi again. Last time, when Li Hung was suspected, the sect higher-ups were also very anxious. They wanted to clear up the misunderstanding, but no one knew if Li Hung had completed it. Finally, when Li Hung woke up, the elder chased everyone out of the door and set up a few restrictions before asking about the details. Hearing that Senior Lu Fengzi finally believed Li Hung, he heaved a long sigh of relief. He could finally put down his worries. It was for the best that Senior Lu Fengzi did not misunderstand. After the mood calmed down, the elder continued to ask about what happened next. At this point, Li Hung was very good at grasping it. He clearly knew where his power came from, so in front of the sect master and these core elders, he never hid or lied. After listening to Li Hung's conversation with Senior Lu Fengzi, the elder couldn't help but look at Li Hung in a different light. Li Hung knew that the sect had paid a lot for him, and even knew to cry to Senior Lu Fengzi for this. He was indeed loyal to the sect, especially when he heard Senior Lu Fengzi's analysis that the pressure that Li Hung was under was the source of his heart demon. He suddenly sighed. The elder had already understood at this time that if he wanted Li Hung to get rid of his heart demon, it seemed that the only way was to improve his cultivation and get rid of the dependence on the spirit congealing pill refined by Yang Chun. Even the elder could understand that the reason why Li Hung wanted to entangle with those female cultivators outside was to relieve this kind of pressure and to forget everything he had to endure through sex. In this way, it seemed that there was no point in letting Li Hung continue to gain experience outside, but there was a danger of falling. Return to the mountain. With a wave of his hand, the elder decidedly Li Hung's itinerary, interrupted his experience, and rushed back to the sect at the fastest speed. The same words were said again in front of the sect master and several other core elders, and everyone fell into contemplation. Sect master Li didn't make a decision first. Instead, he asked the elder in charge of the scripture pavilion to find the free Devil Heart Sutra that had been placed in the scripture pavilion at some point. Everyone could see what kind of cultivation method it was that could make Senior Lu Fengzi say it was so evil. No matter what, they had to wait until they understood it before making a decision. Yang Chun was very happy to get the high-level communication code of the Taishaman. Li Hung explained very clearly that this was prepared for the high-level spies of the Taishaman. Generally, these people were masters of other sect or influential figures who secretly controlled some sect for the Taishaman. When they ascended, it was impossible to expose their identity. So after ascending, they also needed a set of identification code so that they could recognize the seniors of the mysterious heaven sect in the spiritual world. The code that Li Hung said was the highest level, which was directly equivalent to the high-level figures of the core elders of the Taishaman. With this set of code, when they reached the spiritual world, they might be able to deal with the mysterious heaven sect. As for teaching Li Hung the method recorded in the Devil Heart Sutra to solve his spiritual awareness problem, it was a trap that Yang Chun had already prepared for the Taishaman. Now the demand of the Taishaman for spirit congealing pills was growing. Even if Li Hung refined 5,000 pills last time, according to Li Hung's consumption rate, and according to Senior Lu Fengzi's estimation of Li Hung's cultivation base, It was estimated that it would not be enough before his cultivation base was improved enough to communicate with Senior Lu Fengzi without help. There were 3 paths in front of him. The first was to continue to find Yang Chun and be blackmailed by Yang Chun. He believed that the Taishaman would definitely not be willing. The second was to find another senior alchemist who could refine spirit congealing pills or simply train one himself, but it would take hundreds of years or longer. The third was what Senior Lu Fengzi said, the Devil Heart Sutra. Yang Chun was very sure that Li Hung would choose the third one, being able to directly improve his spiritual awareness cultivation base. The temptation for Li Hung was by no means great. This meant that his power would be further enhanced. Even if Li Hung could hold back, he believed that the guy named Yang Lan would try his best to encourage Li Hung. Chapter 1025. Unexpectedly, he inadvertently left Yang Lan's life, and there would be such benefits. Yang Chen also heard about what Yang Lan had done in recent years through other channels, which was very much in line with Yang Chen's appetite. With his help, he believed that Li Hung would go further and further on the road to the destruction of Taishaman. It was just a pity for Yang Lan. He thought that he was constantly making trouble for Yang Chun and taking revenge. Of course, Yang Chun would not easily break Yang Lan's fantasy. He also expected Yang Lan to be able to give advice to the honorable young sect master. Naturally, this was just a small trap. The real big trap was still behind, and it was a temptation that all the high-level Taishaman could not refuse. However, it was not appropriate to throw it out now. He always had to choose an appropriate time. Now Yang Chen was in a good mood. Sure enough, it was the right way to vent some of his resentments. There was a balance between work and rest. He couldn't always stare at the stressful life. It was always necessary to relax appropriately. The 6th Earth Flying Sword was still the 6th Earth magic weapon. There was no point in being embarrassed, so he would use the 6th Earth magic weapon. Yang Chun made a decision. After checking the surrounding formation, he began to refine the 6th Earth magic weapon safely. The magic energy on the 9 secluded flying dust must be absorbed and purified first. After the refining was completed, the magic energy would be absorbed again. Otherwise, with a high concentration of magic energy, Yang Chen's refining process would not be smooth. The demonized vine in the sea of consciousness was still entangled by the spiritual awareness threads. The magic energy of the 9 secluded flying dust entered Yang Chen's sea of consciousness and joined the body of the strengthened demonized vine. It was undeniable that the magic energy contained in these 9 secluded flying dust, which had existed for an unknown period of time, far exceeded Yang Chen's imagination. Even in the middle of the absorption of the magic energy, Yang Chen had to stop the absorption process temporarily and spend a lot of time tempering himself with the magic energy again. This process repeated at least 5 times before the demon chi within the 9 hell flying dust was completely extracted. Then, he began the final preparations before the refinement, familiarizing himself with the materials. The 9 nether flying dust filled every corner of Yang Chen's sea of consciousness. The particles of the flying dust were extremely small. Even if they were magnified many times in Yang Chen's sea of consciousness, they would still appear very tiny and indistinguishable. After carefully understanding the characteristics of the 9 nether flying dust, Yang Chen began to refine it. Before the formal refinement, Yang Chen first used the universe treasure nurturing technique to nourish the 9 flying dust. Then, he began to refine it. The process was not too difficult. His powerful consciousness was able to control all the 9 flying dust without any hindrance. After he left his own consciousness imprint, everything became simple. The most troublesome process was to refine the demonified vine's phantom into the magic weapon as a tool spirit. However, this was not a problem for Yang Chen. With the knowledge and experience of his previous life as a great principal golden immortal and the powerful consciousness of a grade 2 human immortal, adding a tool spirit to the magic weapon was not a troublesome thing. The only thing that made Yang Chen feel pity was that when refining the tool spirit, the success rate of weakening the demonified vine as a tool spirit was higher. Even with Yang Chen's current strength, he still could not make the demonified vine's phantom grow to its maximum size. He could only control it to a radius of 10 feet. Forcibly using his consciousness threads to invade the remaining consciousness of the demonified vine, he carefully retained the instinct of the demonified vine to swallow and condense demon chi. Then, he succeeded in putting the tool's spirit into the magic weapon that had already been formed. This was the only one among Yang Chen's great yin-yang 5 elements magic weapon that had a tool spirit. It was completely black and did not even have a fixed shape. It was just a thick black mist that changed its shape from time to time under Yang Chen's control. When Yang Chen did not control it, it was a black smoke that looked natural. The refining process for Yang Chen himself was not perfect because now Yang Chen's great yin-yang 5 element secret art had not been fully collected. Although the 6th Earth true secret art had been obtained, he had not yet cultivated it. Therefore, the 6th Earth spirit power was not the original spirit power. Relatively speaking, the effect of refining the magic weapon was a little worse. However, Yang Chen did not intend to cultivate the 6th Earth true secret art at this time. These original spirit cultivation methods could be used at a critical moment for a breakthrough. It would be a waste to cultivate them at ordinary times. Moreover, the magic weapon could continue to be refined at that time. He believed that after the baptism of the 6th Earth true secret art, the quality would be even higher. Without any control, the black mist naturally surrounded Yang Chen, making Yang Chen look like a demon god. With a move of Yang Chen's mind, the black mist turned into a black robe, and suddenly it turned into a black armor. It was very natural. For the newly refined magic weapon, Yang Chen gave it a name, Nine Nether Flying Sword. Although it was not in the form of a flying sword, Yang Chen liked to call it that. Because the Nine Nether Flying Sword had just been refined, the spirit in it was deliberately weakened. In addition, the 9 nether flying dust was also purified before the refining, so the demonic chi contained was not sufficient, and it still looked very weak. But despite this, the 9 nether flying sword had shown the effect of condensing demonic chi that was not worse than the formation that Li Tianxue studied. The surrounding demonic chi that was condensed by the formation began to float towards the 9 nether flying sword, so that Yang Chen was surrounded by a thick demonic chi. With such a demonic chi, in the eyes of outsiders, it was definitely a cultivator who was contaminated by the demonic chi and then demonized, right? Maybe Li Tianxue had already become like this. Although Yang Chen did not kill Li Tianxue, apart from being demonized, there was only one result left, and that was to be killed by the demonic beast. There was no other possibility. Even if someone wanted to save him, a Deshang stage cultivator who was almost crazy would already burn incense if he didn't kill the person who saved him. What's more, this was the demon continent. If it was not a close friend, who would be so kind? Maybe there was a chance to meet and kill him first, and he could get some benefits from a corpse. This was the reality. With a wave of his hand, the 9 nether flying sword turned into a long black whip and lashed at a big tree next to him. The black demonic chi directly invaded into the trunk of the tree, along with the big hole that was broken. In less than a moment, the whole tree withered and died. This was just a plant that could withstand the thin demonic chi on the periphery. How could it withstand such an attack? The effect made Yang Chen very satisfied. But now Yang Chen still needed to find a suitable opponent to test the effect of the attack, and whether it would really have the evil power to make people go crazy. All this needed to be verified, and it depended on whether he could find a suitable enemy. It had to be said that Yang Chen's luck was simply so good that it was against the heaven's will. Just as he was thinking about where an enemy could come out to try the power of the 9 nether flying sword, someone immediately appeared in the range of Yang Chen's spiritual awareness. More coincidentally, Li Liheng's spiritual awareness imprint in Yang Chen's sea of consciousness shook slightly, and Yang Chen immediately understood that the other party must have a compass to track his whereabouts. Chapter 1026. The distance was still far away. The other party was only at the peak Yuanying stage, and the scope of the spiritual awareness exploration was far less terrifying than that of Yang Chen. So he did not know that his figure had fallen under the exploration of Yang Chen's spiritual awareness. He just followed the direction guided by the compass. While moving forward, he killed the demonic beast that constantly appeared around him. Yang Chun quietly put away the demonic chi formation a few miles away, and then walked directly in the direction of the man. As he walked, the 9-nether flying sword kept absorbing the demonic chi. With such a short journey, it would not take a long time, but if he could absorb a little, it would increase the power of the demonic chi slightly, and it may be able to make the other party fall into the state of cultivation deviation. In less than a few hours, the other party found the whereabouts of Yang Chun, and the trembling of the compass clearly told him that the target of this trip, Yang Chun, was not far away, and his spiritual awareness also found the figure of Yang Chun. However, this guy was a cautious guy. Even if he found Yang Chun's people, he still did not dare to be completely sure. He was just cautious and released an array flag with a stealth array and wanted to get closer to confirm it carefully. "Are you looking for me?" Yang Chun directly exposed his whereabouts and asked without waiting for him to get close. "Alchemy Grandmaster Yang?" The other party had never seen Yang Chun, but had only heard the description. Seeing Yang Chun speak, he no longer concealed it, put away the array flag, and asked in a very calm tone. "Yes." Yang Chun admitted directly, and then asked, "How do I address this friend?" "There is no need to be so troublesome. Take out what Elder Hu Chini wants, and I will let you live." The other party was a master of the peak Yuanying stage. Against Yang Chun, who was in the early Yuanying stage, he was naturally full of confidence. His words are also extremely domineering and condescending. Otherwise, there will be one more demonic cultivator in this world. Yang Chun was surrounded by a black mist that could not be hidden from the eyes of the other party, and Yang Chun did not intend to hide it. At the very least, in the eyes of the other party, Yang Chun was currently being invaded by demonic chi and was unable to take care of himself. He thought that by saying this, he had already given Yang Chun enough face, and in this situation, Yang Chun had no choice but to refuse. "Oh, what exactly does Elder Hu want?" Yang Chun asked with a smile. "I don't know." The peak of the Yuanying stage smiled and replied. Without giving Yang Chun a chance to speak again, he directly ordered, "So, hand over everything you have, and I will spare your life." Yang Chun could still smile. At least in the eyes of the other party, Yang Chun should be crying. A 5th-grade alchemy grandmaster was not a powerful figure in this demon continent. Demonized demon beasts didn't care if you were an alchemy master, a grandmaster or not. Demonized demon beasts would still demonize. Wasn't Yang Chun in such a crisis now? The master couldn't help but be happy. With Yang Chun's appearance, it could be said that he could knead him however he wanted. It was his great luck that Yang Chun's good things were all taken advantage of by him. This time, not only could he find what the sect needed and make a great contribution, but he could also recover the things that Yang Chun extorted from his sect. Those things that Yang Chun extorted from the Taishaman were a huge fortune in itself. Whether it was returned to the sect or not, it meant huge benefits for the peak Yuanying stage master. In fact, he didn't want to keep Yang Chun's life at all. The reason why he said so much was that he was waiting for Yang Chun to be deeply invaded by the demonic chi, so it would be easier to deal with him. As for failure, could such a ridiculous thing happen? If you want something, you'd better come and get it yourself. Yang Chun stood in the same place and did not make any extra movements. He just provoked with a faint smile. "You refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. I'll help you." The master grinned and did not hesitate to summon the flying sword and slashed at Yang Chun from a distance. In any case, this was the demon continent. There was nothing wrong with being careful. The master still did a good job. The black gas on Yang Chun's body suddenly skyrocketed and greeted the other party's flying sword. Seeing this situation, the other party was stunned. Obviously, he did not expect such a situation, but he was only stunned for a moment. He still controlled the flying sword to slash at Yang Chun. As soon as the flying sword touched the black mist, it was like a hot sword inserted into a cold pool, making a hissing sound, which made people feel creepy. Even the slightest person understood that this black gas was not a good method. The Yuanying stage master hurriedly recalled the flying sword and checked it carefully. When he found that there was no major problem, He was relieved. This kind of strange method, it should be the method of the demon's sex, right? I didn't expect the 5th grade alchemist, Master Yang Chun, Master Yang, to be a demon, so this old man has to get rid of the demon to defend the Tao. After all, he was from the Tao sections. Even in this situation, the other party did not forget to find a righteous title and put a demon hat on Yang Chun. He said it with a righteous look, and he was a master who got rid of the demon to defend the Tao. So much nonsense. Yang Chun snorted and directly turned the black mist into a huge whip and lashed at the other party. How could a master of the peak Yuanying stage be hit by this kind of attack? The other party's figure flashed, and he had already dodged, and then the flying sword immediately counterattacked. The black mist suddenly rose, and it directly covered the space of tens of feet, and the peak Yuanying stage master was directly enveloped in it. Seeing this situation, the other party was shocked and hurriedly sacrificed a few protective magic weapons to protect his body, and he was about to leave the shroud of the black mist. How could Yang Chun let him escape? The 9 nether flying sword could change shape, and it instantly turned into countless spikes and stabbed the opponent who was wrapped in the center. What protective magic weapon, what flying sword cut on the black mist? It was useless. Who has seen a sword that can cut the mist? The black mist directly invaded his skin. As soon as he touched the black mist, the other party felt that his mind was in a trance, and then he had distracting thoughts. He immediately noticed that it was not good, and he quickly launched a clear mind cultivation method and quickly suppressed these distracting thoughts. It must be said that the Tao sect's cultivators were still determined, after all, and they were infected by the demonic qi. Although there were some signs of heart demons, they quickly calmed down. It really is the method of the demon's sex. Evil creature, you can't be left alive. Perceiving the abnormality in the black mist, the opponent was even more furious, and he almost took out his trump card, and regardless of the black mist, he only attacked Yang Chun. What a pity! Yang Chun on the opposite side could only make such a sigh. This 9 nether flying sword, after all, was refined not long ago, and the demonic qi was insufficient. Otherwise, it would have been enough to trigger this guy's heart demon, and he would have directly become the same as Li Tianxue. It was really a pity. Chapter 10:27. However, despite the lack of power, the other party obviously paused and then immediately launched the clear mind cultivation method. Yang Chun still saw in his eyes and was happy in his heart. This fully showed that the 9 nether flying sword, as Yang Chun expected, had the effect of a mental attack. It was enough to confirm this, and it didn't really need to have a strong effect. If it had such a terrifying power when it had just been refined and had not absorbed much demonic energy, Yang Chun was not sure if he could suppress his own flying sword. It was good now. While Yang Chun was satisfied, it also meant that the other party no longer had the value of existence. The other party kept talking about Elder Hu. Obviously, he was either the people of Taishimen or Hu Qianni. It would not be a pity to kill him. Although the 9 nether flying sword was in the form of mist, it did not mean that it only had the power of a mental attack. Since Yang Chun dared to call it a flying sword, it still had the attack power of a flying sword. Previously, it was just to verify the mental attack. Now that the other party thought that the black mist was nothing more than this, the poor guy was simply courting his own death. Chi-chi, the unusually clear sound of sharp blade cutting through the flesh sounded, followed by half a scream that was not completely shouted out, and then there was no other sound. The misty 9 nether flying sword returned to its original robe appearance, and Yang Chun was very satisfied with this. In this demon continent, the last thing that was lacking was demonic energy. As long as this flying sword was surrounded by demonic energy, it could continue to accumulate demonic energy. The dead guy's Chinquan bag was already in Yang Chun's hands. After a few glances, he knew the origin of the other party. Sure enough, it was a guy from Taishimen. Looking at the compass he deliberately brought, he must have come here to kill Yang Chun. The Taishimen probably couldn't stand it anymore. From time to time, there would be a demonized monster jumping out, and Yang Chun was not bothered by the 2 masters and directly killed them with a 9 nether flying sword. Soon Yang Chun discovered that after the 9 nether flying sword killed the demonized monster, it could directly absorb the condensed demonic energy in the demonic body, which was much more efficient than directly exposing it to the demonic energy. After discovering this, Yang Chun was happy for a while. As long as the demonized monster was killed enough and strong enough, the power of the 9 nether flying sword would increase rapidly. Refining the flying sword had taken several months. After calculating the time, Yang Chun estimated that when he arrived at the appointed gathering place, it would be almost the day of the reunion with the women. He simply found a right direction and walked all the way. When the demonic energy was absorbed to a certain extent, Yang Chun discovered another feature of the 9 nether flying sword. That was, as long as he came into contact with the 9 nether flying sword, all kinds of messy thoughts would constantly emerge in his mind. Even if Yang Chun's current spiritual awareness was so strong, he could not avoid it. With the inexplicable accumulation of more and more, this kind of messy thoughts became more and more complex. Yang Chun needed to constantly fight against this kind of distracting thoughts that he didn't know where they came from. He was almost always tempering his own state of mind. For others, this was definitely a demonic thing that would affect their cultivation, but for Yang Chun, it was simply a magic weapon for tempering his mind. Even Yang Chun did not have to deliberately absorb the demonic energy of the devilish bead, and he could easily achieve the purpose of tempering his state of mind. In this case, if Yang Chun could still get used to it and cope with it, he believed that there was nothing in the mortal world that could bother Yang Chun. He had almost experienced all kinds of positive and negative emotions that could be imagined. No matter how strong the emotional fluctuations were, they could not make Yang Chun confused. Even if he was already possessed by the devil, it was estimated that he could forcibly suppress it. This 9 nether flying sword with the attribute of accumulating earth was simply the most suitable magic weapon to be used on the demon continent. Of course, only people like Yang Chun could easily control it. As long as others dared to touch it, it would cause unpredictable consequences. Strictly speaking, among the flying sword in Yang Chun's body, not to mention others, the second wood blood phantom vine flying sword and the 6th earth 9 nether flying sword were almost two demonic swords. One grew by sucking blood, and the other grew by absorbing demonic energy. They were all demonic things that couldn't be more evil in the eyes of a gentleman. With these two flying swords, it was a little difficult for Yang Chun to argue that he was a demon. In view of this, Yang Chun could only use the two flying swords carefully. Otherwise, it would not be worth the loss to be eliminated before his great cause was achieved. When Yang Chun arrived at the gathering place, it was already almost a few months later. There were only more than 2 months and less than 3 months before he reunited with the 4 women. Along the way, Yang Chun killed a lot of demonic beasts, but without a few Deshang stage masters to drive those demonic beasts to his side, the number of killings dropped a lot, but he had already experienced a tragic killing before, and the killing efficiency of his sword techniques was extremely improved. This time, Yang Chun's luck was not very good. In 2 years, he didn't know how many demonic beasts he had killed, but he didn't even get a devilish bead, which made Yang Chun very unhappy. Of course, it was just a little unhappy. Yang Chun had not yet reached the point where he had to get the devilish bead. The appointed gathering place was tens of thousands of miles deeper than the previous one, and it was slightly smaller. After all, there were always fewer and fewer masters. As soon as he entered the gathering place, Yang Chun saw an acquaintance, Li Cheng, who came to greet him when he first entered the demon continent. Brother Yang Chun, what a coincidence! Li Cheng also saw Yang Chun and greeted Yang Chun with a smile. It's really a coincidence. We meet again. Yang Chun also smiled and greeted him. He still had a feeling of not being able to see through Li Cheng in his heart, but there was no particularly dangerous concept. He didn't know why. As soon as the two greeted each other, Yang Chun suddenly found that Li Liheng's spiritual awareness imprint in his sea of consciousness trembled a few times, as if several people were using the compass to track him at the same time. Yang Chun's face changed, and before he could say anything, he saw that around the gathering place, a few figures slowly came towards this side, vaguely surrounding Yang Chun from several directions. Among the several people, the weakest one was also in the late Yuanying stage, and the strongest one was in the peak Deshang stage. Yang Qin's eyes narrowed, and he stared closely at the old man who looked the most stooped. The peak Deshang stage, there was also an oppressive aura on his body. Yang Chun directly guessed the identity of the old man. He was definitely a great elder of Taishaman. "Kid, give me your life." The great elder simply ignored the rules of the gathering place and said to Yang Chun, "Stop." Just when Yang Chun was planning to fight with the other party, Li Cheng, who was next to Yang Chun, shouted at the great elder who was closing in, "The gathering place is strictly forbidden to use force." Chapter 1028. Li Cheng's words seemed to have aroused all the murderous intent. At the same time as his voice fell, the boundless coercion enveloped everyone in the gathering point. Under this powerful coercion, even the masters of the Deshang stage felt a chill in their hearts. The source of the coercion came from the stooped old man. While countless people were surprised, they were also greatly shocked. Such a master, how high did his cultivation have to be to make these people, who were usually pretentious, feel fear? There were a few who did not seem to be affected. All of them appeared with the old man, distributed in all directions, firmly guarding in the middle. Seeing this situation, the dozens of Deshang stage masters around all took a cold breath for a while. To be able to firmly suppress everyone in this kind of situation, and to be able to accurately control not to hurt his own people, what kind of cultivation base was this? Rules? The stooped old man seemed to have suddenly become a muscular man in an instant. His monstrous momentum rushed straight to the sky, and his cold words were like a high and mighty ruler. Inviolable, what rules? Where I am the rule. Everyone at the gathering point heard this unbelievably arrogant statement. There was a burst of anger on everyone's face, but the strange thing was that no one stood up except Li Cheng. According to the rules of the previous gathering points, if someone dared to break the rules so blatantly, he would absolutely not escape the fate of being besieged by everyone. Even if his cultivation base was higher, it was impossible to be the opponent of everyone. Living in the demon continent for so long, everyone has always felt that it was a natural rule that they could not fight at the gathering point, and no one has ever thought of violating it. But today, a guy stood arrogantly in front of everyone and said loudly that he was the rule. These guys who had been on the killing field for a long time seemed to have chosen to be silent. Everyone who came here to gain experience, even if they had killed many people in the demon continent, they had also killed from the bottom to the top. The number of demonized beasts killed by their hands could be said to be innumerable. The number of battles exceeded the total number of battles that many people could face in a lifetime. It was reasonable to say that there should be no fear, but this unreasonable thing happened. Whether it was the ancestors of the Yuanying stage or the masters of the Deshang stage, in the face of the terrifying pressure of the old man, there was no thought of resistance in their hearts. In addition to fear, the only thing left was that it was natural. This was definitely a peerless master, and it was a super master who was so high that all the masters of the Deshang stage who were present would not dare to fight. Why would such an expert appear here? The difference in cultivation level was simply too great. The great elder's strength was infinitely close to that of a human immortal who had transcended tribulation. As long as a cultivator had not transcended tribulation, he or she would be firmly suppressed by such a huge difference in cultivation level, or even a world. Compared with the fear and timidity of all the masters in the gathering point, those masters who came to the demon continent with the great elder were really proud. Before coming to the demon continent, everyone felt that this was a terrifying place, but when they really came here, they found that it was just some simple demonized beasts. Even without waiting for them to make a move, the great elder released a little bit of his aura from a distance, and there were no more demonic beasts who dared to come close. This made them suddenly feel that the demon continent was nothing great. Others regarded it as a dangerous place, but they regarded it as a smooth road. Moreover, so many people came to hunt down a junior in the early Yuanying stage with great fanfare. It was really a bit overkill. However, thinking about Yang Chen's previous record, or it couldn't be said to be a record, It could only be said that the results of the previous Taishaman sent people out. It seemed that Yangchun also had a master guarding him. 6 masters of the Yuanying stage fell at the same time, and even Elder Hu Qianyi was inexplicably plotted against. It was a safe plan to send the Great Elder. From the moment Yangchun appeared at the gathering point, he was doomed to be a dead man. Originally, some people planned to follow the compass all the way, but the Great Elder did not fully agree. He just let a few of them split into several directions to start tracking, but he waited in this gathering point with a group of masters. The Elder seemed to be sure that Yangchun would come here. The waiting time was not very long. It had only been more than a year since they arrived at the Demon Continent, and most of them were on the road. After coming to this gathering point, at the beginning, everyone also followed the rules and did not make any excessive behavior until the appearance of Yangchun. In this ridiculous place, the rules were set that no fighting was allowed. Didn't they know that the rules were set by the people with big fists? Even if there were masters in charge, what about it? Weren't they scared by the Great Elder and didn't dare to move? It was ridiculous to break the rules and gang up on him. Their group blatantly broke the rules, but so far, no one has come out to maintain the rules. No, there was a little guy who jumped out, and he was actually the one with the worst cultivation base in this gathering point. It may be that he had just come to the Demon Continent not long ago. There was no sign of fighting on his body, and his temperament was not strong enough. The newcomer didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Did he think that someone would respond if he stood up? Several masters of Taishaman thought in their hearts, and they sneered on their faces, watching Li Cheng jump out like a joke, and no one moved. They only needed to ensure that Yangchun couldn't escape, and the rest would naturally be solved by the Great Elder. As for the Great Elder, he would not be interested in a little guy who jumped out of his head. At his point, what fame and fortune, what power and profit, what thoughts of fighting for power and profit were faint. His heart was like still water, and he would never have any hot-blooded impulse. The little guy was good. He knew how to maintain the rules, but that was all. The Great Elder didn't even look at Li Cheng, just took a firm and solid step and walked towards Yangchun step by step. Yangchun was his real goal. After solving Yangchun and finishing the things for the sect, he could safely cross the tribulation and ascend. I don't care what rules you have here. I only follow my own rules. The voice of the Great Elder was like a ruler, calm and majestic, and everyone who heard it was shocked. I only want one person's life, the others as long as you stay honestly, otherwise, go die. In 2 consecutive sentences, the Great Elder had clearly expressed his attitude and his purpose. His goal was Yangchun alone. Chapter 1029. If you break the rules, everyone has the right to punish you. Just as Yangchun was about to make a move, Li Cheng's voice sounded again. This time, not only the masters of Taishaman, but even the other masters of the Demon Continent who were deterred by the Great Elder cast a surprised look. Li Cheng spoke for the first time, and then the old guy directly released a monstrous pressure which suppressed everyone, and no one dared to say half a word. Why did he still dare to jump out and talk nonsense now? Was he tired of living? Stubborn fool, you two can die together. The Great Elder's voice, which was almost without joy or sorrow, sounded again, and a sword light flew up from his body and flew high into the sky. At the same time, there was another light flying up, but it flew out from Li Cheng's body. It was also a sword light, but compared with the dazzling sword light of the Great Elder, Li Cheng's sword light was very dim, and it could even be said that there was almost no light. It was just an almost invisible gray shadow. Whoosh! The Great Elder's sword light flew directly towards Yangchun, and Li Cheng's sword light also slashed towards the Great Elder at the same time. Except for Yangchun and Li Cheng, everyone present had determined a result in their hearts. Yangchun's head was cut off, and Li Cheng's flying sword was blocked, and then the next sword light flew back and cut off Li Cheng's head. A master at the level of the Great Elder was already too lazy to deal with several opponents at the same time, especially 2 juniors. He would definitely come one by one, and he would not worry that the other party could resist successfully. He would behead them in order, leaving no hope for the opponent. This was a real master. Everyone was watching the moment when Yangchun's head flew up, but they only saw Yangchun stretch out his hand and grab the sword light. catching the flying sword with his bare hands? This young man couldn't be a fool, right? Not to mention facing a master of this level. Even if it was a young man in the early nascent soul stage who was in the same realm as him, he would suffer a big loss against the flying sword with his bare hands. Even if there was a good body refining technique, it could not withstand the confrontation between the tempered body and the tempered magic weapon. It was clear at a glance who was strong and who was weak. So, in everyone's speculation, before the situation of Yang Chen's head flying up, there was another scene of the palm being cut off, which should be consistent. The Peerless Master just said that he only wanted the lives of Yang Chun and Li Cheng, and as long as the others did not move, it would be fine. The group of people who had been suppressed by the Grand Elder to the point of not daring to breathe were actually relieved. As long as it had nothing to do with them, it couldn't be any better. No one cared about the rule of not fighting at the assembly point. Just as the Great Elder had said, the one with the biggest fist was the rule. At this moment, the Great Elder's fist was the biggest, so his words were the rule. There were hundreds of people up and down in this gathering point. There were nearly 1,000 people. To be, to be. From this point of view, all the guys who came to the Demon Continent to gain experience, except for Li Cheng, should feel ashamed. It's a pity that shame is not as important as life and death, and no one will jump out to be the person who sacrifices life for righteousness. As soon as everyone's worries were put down, another thought emerged. It was definitely a precious experience to be able to witness a master at the level of the Great Elder with their own eyes. Everyone couldn't help but look forward to it, looking forward to the result they guessed. The flying sword had already arrived in front of Yang Chun, and Yang Chun's hand was very fast, and he grabbed it down. Just when everyone was waiting for the scene of the palm being broken and blood spurting out, the sword light suddenly stopped. Brush. The situation of the sword light, changing from extreme movement to extreme stillness, made people's eyes uncomfortable for a while. But no matter how uncomfortable it was, it couldn't compare to the shock in their hearts. Yang Chun just reached out casually and grabbed the sword light, and then the flying sword of the Peerless Master was caught by Yang Chen's big hand. Not to mention cutting off the palm, it was estimated that it didn't even cut off a hair on Yang Chen's hand. How was this possible? A master who was more powerful than all the masters of the Deshang stage combined on the scene could not even do anything to the fingers of a junior in the early Yuanying stage? What kind of joke was this? Could it be that this old man and this young man teased everyone together to play a play? Not only those people from the Demon Continent, but even the people from Taishaman were all stunned. What was going on? How is this possible? How could the Great Elder let Yang Chun catch his flying sword? Among the people at the scene, the most surprised was not the others, but the Great Elder. From the beginning to the present, he has been firmly grasping the initiative, controlling all the atmosphere here. He wanted the wind to blow. He wanted the rain to rain. He was waiting to kill Yang Chun with a sword, but suddenly there was a change in the situation. With a move of his mind, his life source flying sword, which was connected to his mind, was ready to change the angle to kill Yang Chun. However, this was just a thought. The flying sword in Yang Chen's hand just shook slightly. The Great Elder was shocked. The young man in the early Yuanying stage in front of him was actually a master who hid so deeply. Grabbing the life source, flying sword of a master of his level with his bare hands. Even if the Great Elder was stronger than those who had just crossed the tribulation and ascended, he did not dare. Even someone as strong as the Grand Elder, who had surpassed those who had just ascended, would not dare to grab the natal flying sword of an expert of his level with his bare hands. Yang Chen did not hesitate to reach out and grab it. Just as he was feeling surprised, a black light flashed in front of him. Only then did the Great Elder remember that there was another junior who was planning to attack him with a flying sword. Just as he was just immersed in the shock of being caught by Yang Chen with his bare hands, he actually forgot this. If the tiger doesn't show its power, do you really think I'm a sick cat? Even two juniors in the early Yuanying stage dare to ride on this old man's neck and shit? The Great Elder, who was just shocked from the beginning to the end, was no longer in that state of no joy and no sorrow. He was furious. This trivial flying sword. You want to deal with the Great Elder of Taishaman? This young man didn't put the master in his eyes too much. right? The Great Elder was furious, but he stood still in the same place. Yang Chun dared to catch the flying sword with his bare hands. How could he, a peerless master, not dare to do so? He wanted to let others see that this old man was standing here. No matter how you cut me with your flying sword, you can't do anything to this old man. Thus, another shocking scene occurred once again. Such a powerful, peerless master, the Great Elder of Teshiment, who only uses breath to make the thousands of masters present not dare to breathe, stood straight in the same place and let Li Cheng, the younger generation's flying sword, cut his neck. Then a white-haired head, like a silk ball being thrown up, rushed into the sky with a fountain of blood. After turning a few times in the air, it fell in a place not far away, rolled a few times, and no longer moved. The headless corpse was still standing in the same place, and on the flat neck, there was a burst of hissing sound, and blood spurted wildly, dyeing the surrounding blood red. Chapter 1030. There were only 2 swords in total, the sword that the Great Elder used to kill Yang Chun, plus the sword that Li Cheng used to kill the Great Elder. Both swords looked very ordinary, without the slightest special place, but the results were very different. The sword that was slashed at Yang Chun was caught by Yang Chen empty-handed, and now the flying sword was still in Yang Chen's hands. As for the sword that slashed at the Supreme Elder, it was an effective strike, cleanly decapitating the Supreme Elder. The fact was so incredible that it was not until the Great Elder's head fell to the ground and his body fell to the ground that the group of people reacted. How is this possible? The most incredible thing was the masters of the Teshiment, the power of the Great Elder. They followed him from the sect to the demon continent for more than 10 years, and they understood it very well. Not to mention a little early Yuanying stage. Even if there were 10 or 100 of them, they should not be able to do anything to the Great Elder. But the situation that everyone saw was not like this at all. Several masters of the Teshiment even thought that the Great Elder was joking with everyone and deliberately made an illusion. It's just that this illusion was too real, right? It was so real that everyone felt it was real. That was the Great Elder who had surpassed the strength of a master, who had transcended the tribulation and ascended. Impossible. On the other side, the people who were shocked were the guys from the demon continent. A peerless master who only exuded his aura scared them so much that they didn't dare to move, was so easily beheaded by a sword without any resistance. What was wrong with this world? Was the early Yuanying stage the most powerful realm in the mortal world? Could it be that this master was just a fancy, but his aura was amazing, but he didn't have any skills? This was the most likely situation. Otherwise, such a powerful master, the flying sword was grabbed by a young man in the early Yuanying stage. It was too fake. Today, someone broke the rules by killing Master Yang. If you don't do anything, when someone kills you and breaks the rules one day, who will save you? Li Cheng killed the incomparably overbearing Supreme Elder with a single sword strike, but he did not continue to attack the Teshiment. Instead, he shouted loudly. Li Cheng's shout immediately woke up the surrounding people who were stunned. Today, they could be considered to have lost all their face. Not to mention being bullied and slapped in the face. So many of them didn't even dare to make sound. Furthermore, it was the 2 nascent soul realm cultivators with the lowest cultivation who had been upholding the rules. How could they endure this? Countless pairs of eyes filled with shame and anger stared directly at the Teshiment experts who came out with the Supreme Elder. There were dozens of masters of the Deshang stage here, plus hundreds of masters who were at least in the early Yuanying stage who had been in the demon continent for at least 10 years. The Teshiment sent this time, except for a Grand Supreme Elder, the others were only at the late and peak nascent soul stage. Just a dozen or so Yuanying stage masters, facing the hateful eyes of hundreds of masters. The kind of high-spirited mood just now no longer existed. At this moment, their mood was absolutely exactly the same as when the people at the gathering point were suppressed by the Supreme Elder at the beginning, and they didn't dare to breathe. It was a pity that these guys who had killed countless people, in addition to being ashamed and angry when they strongly wanted to vent, they didn't have the magnanimity of the Supreme Elder to let them go as long as they didn't get in the way. Someone took the lead and just took a step, and suddenly everyone rushed to the nearest Taishaman disciple. More than a dozen Taishaman Yuanying stage masters were buried by hundreds of angry demon continent killers in the blink of an eye, and there was no trace of them. In the chaos, only two places were completely undisturbed. One was the place where Yang Chun stood, and the other was the place where Li Cheng stood. The distance between the two was almost 2 feet, but within a radius of 10 feet, there was no other living person, only a headless corpse lying a few feet away from them. One caught the flying sword of a supermaster empty-handed, and the other beheaded a supermaster with a sword. The hundreds of people present were not fools. Acting? Was there such a person who used his head to act? What's more, when the peerless master just appeared, there were more than a dozen masters of the late Yuanying stage and peak Yuanying stage. It was absolutely true. Since the peerless master was real, then how terrifying was the person who beheaded this level of master with a sword? How terrifying was the person who caught the flying sword of such a master empty-handed? Wandering in the demon continent, in addition to having the heroic spirit of not being afraid of death, one must also have enough eyesight to be able to judge the strength of the opponent, run when it was time to run, and pretend to be a grandson when it was time to pretend to be a grandson. Before, in front of the Supreme Elder, everyone pretended to be a grandson very well, and obviously their eyesight was also very good. Such two super powerful killers, if anyone dared to provoke them at will, it was really courting death. Let's vent our anger on those guys who came out with the peerless master. The flying sword is yours, and the Chinquin bag is mine. How about it? Li Cheng just shouted and didn't care about the performance of these people around him at all, and discussed with Yang Chun. The two were not far away, and they could hear each other clearly. The flying sword naturally referred to the flying sword of the Supreme Elder, which was now in the hand of Yang Chun. Because the master died, it had stopped struggling and was obediently put away by Yang Chun. The Chinquin bag was the Chinquin bag on the body of the Supreme Elder. It was estimated that the old guy had accumulated all his life. Okay, Yang Chun had long known that Li Cheng was a bit mysterious, but he still didn't expect him to be so terrifying. He beheaded the Supreme Elder of the Taishaman with one sword. Although the Supreme Elder was careless in this, Li Cheng's own strength should not be underestimated. If Yang Chun wanted to take action, he could also desperately kill this Supreme Elder, but he was afraid that he would have to use a lot of capital and even destroy a lot of things, exposing the trump card that he would plot against the Taishaman countless days later. Maybe he would also be injured, and it would not be as easy as Li Cheng to kill the opponent with a wave of his hand. In this case, Li Cheng's strength was not overestimated by Yang Chun, but underestimated. Fortunately, it was not too late to know now, but he didn't know which sect this mysterious master came from. The natal flying sword of the Supreme Elder of the Taishaman was definitely a good thing. This kind of thing that would accompany the Supreme Elder to ascend to the immortal world of the spiritual world and fight for a lifetime must have been made by him at all costs. In terms of value, it would not be lower than the things in the Chinquin bag. Seeing that Li Cheng was straightforward and had no hostility from the beginning, Yang Chun also wanted to get to know him more. After Li Cheng's flying sword hooked the Supreme Elder's Chinquin bag and put it away, he smiled and invited, "Brother Li, I still have some good wine here. Do you want to drink a few cups with me? I can't ask for more." Li Cheng was also a straightforward person. He laughed and agreed directly. Chapter 1031. When the two walked into a room in the gathering point together, the guys at the gathering point who were paying attention to the movements of the two finally breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that these two fiends were not particularly angry, but these guys from the demon continent all felt embarrassed. They enjoyed the safety of the gathering point for hundreds of years, but when things came to an end, they didn't know how to stand up and maintain the rules of the gathering point. If this goes on for a long time, it would be impossible for them to find a place where they could rest at ease on the demon continent. It was this feeling of shame and indignation that made these guys particularly merciless when facing the remaining Taishaman disciples. Just a wave of impact, the dozen or so Taishaman Yuanying stage masters died. All the Taishaman people were killed, but no one dared to put away the Chinquin bags left by these Taishaman disciples at will. In the end, two Deshang stage masters took the initiative to collect these Chinquan bags, and then respectfully sent them to the outside of the room, where Yang Chun and Li Cheng went in to drink. They killed the people, but they had no face to claim credit. The two young people seemed to be drinking, but no one dared to go in with a straight face. The performance of the two juniors was more powerful than the old guys who had been practicing on the demon continent for many years. In front of the two young people, the people in this gathering point could not lift their heads. The two people in the room ignored what happened outside and didn't say much about what had just happened. The two were just chatting and drinking. The wine was the Jade Dragon wine prepared by Yang Chun. Because Sun Qingxue also liked to drink a little, Yang Chun brewed a lot of auxiliary wine to blend with the distiller's yeast. Every year, it was brewed with the spirit spring water from all over the place. After so many years, it has saved a lot of money. In particular, some of the auxiliary wines have been aged for 100 or 200 years. The auxiliary wine alone was also a good wine. It was blended with the distiller's yeast that had been preserved in the gourd for tens of thousands of years. As soon as it was taken out, the fragrance of the wine was overwhelming, and people couldn't help but be intoxicated. Good wine. Li Cheng was obviously a wine lover, and he knew wine very well. Just by smelling it, he seemed to be able to determine the origin of some wine. This is brewed by Wu Yang. It's at least 170 years old. After smelling it, Li Cheng took a small sip and closed his eyes to savor it for a while before continuing. With the addition of aged distiller's yeast, there's something old in the new, and something new in the old. Sure enough, there's something different about it. After drinking another mouthful, he said again, "This water should be a spirit spring from the southern heaven region. It has been infused with a bit of gung metal origin. Metal gives birth to water. Good wine, good wine." Just these two comments alone made Yang Chun have a whole new level of respect for him. Regardless of whether it was the brewing year, the ingredients, or the source of the water, everything was on point. This was definitely a unique skill. It would be impossible if one did not have a certain level of familiarity with the geography of the world. This auxiliary wine was personally brewed by me, but the distiller's yeast was obtained from somewhere else. It's rare that brotherly likes it, so please drink more. Yang Chun was naturally happy that someone praised the wine he brewed. Yang Chen's auxiliary wine was also taken out one by one for Li Cheng to taste. The wine blended with different auxiliary wines had different tastes. Any one of them was the best wine in the world. Both of them were forthright people. They didn't care whether there were dishes to go with the wine or not. They just drank one cup after another while talking about some interesting things in the world. When drinking with bosom friends, 1,000 cups was not enough. If my wife was here, she would be able to prepare a table of good side dishes. While drinking, Yang Chun didn't forget to praise his wife. Specifically for the sake of this little brother's desire for good food, you have studied in the mortal world for a whole 10 years. In a few months, if brotherly is still here, you will definitely be able to have a good meal. Oh, there's such a thing? Hearing Yang Chun praise his wife, Li Cheng's eyes suddenly lit up. His face was full of expectation. At a glance, one could tell that he was a foodie. If that's the case, this little brother will definitely wait for a few months. In terms of cultivation, both of them must have secrets that were not known to others, and even in terms of enjoyment, they seemed to be unwilling to lag behind others. They all understood the balance between work and rest, and understood the appropriate indulgence of their emotional instincts, so they could naturally talk together. As they chatted, they naturally talked about this demon continent. Everyone was training in this demon continent, so naturally they had a lot of common topics. Yang Chun wasn't very clear about the existence of these gathering points and the origin of the formation that blocked the entire demon continent, so he naturally had to ask Li Cheng for advice. However, Li Cheng claimed that he had just arrived. In fact, the two should have entered the demon continent at the same time, but Li Cheng came dozens of days earlier when they were on the periphery, so they didn't know much. But Li Cheng didn't come here entirely to gain experience. He also went to a lot of places, saw a lot of things, and knew a little more than Yang Chun. It's just that the extra ones were just where the demonic energy was particularly abnormal. For Yang Chun, it was just a reference, and it didn't have much use. However, Li Cheng was very interested in Yang Chen's current robe. With his eyesight, he naturally saw that this was a magic weapon. But wasn't this Yang Chen too bold to refine a magic weapon that absorbs demonic energy and wear it on his body? Brother Yang still has to be careful of this demonic energy. Li Cheng said a little earnestly, "This demonic energy has been studied by this little brother for many days. Although it can't hurt people, if the concentration is high, the average cultivator will be entangled for life and unable to get rid of it, because this demonic energy is fatal, and it is countless. Brother Yang should be safe." It was not too difficult to find the demonic energy of the 9 nether flying sword at a glance. People in this demon continent dealt with demonic energy almost every day, and anyone could find it. But as Li Cheng said, if the concentration was high, it would be entangled for life, which was not so simple. Yang Chen was now simply using the demonic energy as an inducement to temper his state of mind, and the concentration of the demonic energy was far from the point of entanglement for life. But Li Cheng had already come to this conclusion, and it was conceivable how deep Li Cheng's research was. This little brother will pay attention. Yang Chen hurriedly thanked him. No matter what the other party said, it was a good intention. Don't be too nervous for the time being. This tool spirit is a bit interesting, is an excellent thing to temper the state of mind. Li Cheng had been staring at Yang Chen's robe, and seemed to see what he was thanking him for, and then said, "If your spiritual awareness is strong enough and your mind is firm enough, you don't have to worry. It's just that the ordinary cultivator's spiritual awareness is not so high, and naturally the demonic energy will take advantage of it. As long as you pay attention to this at all times, you will be fine." This was good news. At least Yang Chen could use it at ease. If the 9 nether flying sword had to be sealed after it was refined, Yang Chen would also feel a pity. Since Li Cheng said so, he believed that Yang Chen would be able to control it easily. Chapter 1032. Strictly speaking, Li Cheng and Yang Chen were just acquaintances. They spoke a few words when they first entered the demon continent. This was the second time, and although the two were facing the same enemy this time, the purpose of the attack was different. Yang Chen was resisting the other party's attempt to kill him, while Li Cheng was trying to maintain the rules of the gathering point of the demon continent. Therefore, although the two had drunk a lot of wine and had a very congenial exchange, they were at best 2 drinking buddies, not close friends. After drinking, Li Cheng did not stay with Yang Chen all the time, but found a room to cultivate by himself. There were many rooms in this gathering point, which was a safe place for people to cultivate. It was very easy to find a room. Li Cheng didn't even look at the chinquin bag placed at the door of the room where the two were drinking. He directly kicked half of it to Yang Chen according to the quantity, and took the other half away without hesitation. Li Cheng cultivated by himself, but Yang Chen was not so focused, but first came out to see if he could buy some devilish bead in the near future. While increasing some wealth, he could also absorb some high concentration of demonic energy. Since Li Cheng said that Yang Chen didn't have to worry, Yang Chen didn't know why, but he believed Li Cheng's words very much. Although the two didn't have much contact, there was a kind of silent, tacit understanding and trust. Even if Yang Chen was still a little afraid of Li Cheng, he had no doubt about this. To be honest, if Li Cheng really wanted to harm Yang Chen really had no certainty of winning in a face-to-face battle. He even had a hunch in his heart that even if he released his own blood river, it would not have any effect. So he would not doubt that Li Cheng would have any tricks on this small problem that he didn't know when it would happen. Walking on the street, those people looked at Yang Chen with some evasive eyes. The people in their gathering point were really embarrassed this time. A group of masters didn't even have the courage to make a move. It was so shameful that they didn't have the face to see others. "Shopkeeper, do you have any devilish bead? Unpurified devilish bead, big and small." The atmosphere was awkward. Yang Chen quickly entered a store and directly stated his requirements. "Anything you buy, all the stores here are 20% off." The shopkeeper was also one of the people who didn't dare to make a move yesterday. When he saw Yang Chen, he blushed slightly and then hurriedly said. After saying this, the shopkeeper took out all the devilish beads in his store and let Chen choose. Other people definitely did not have this kind of treatment. They all asked what grade of demonic baleful bead they wanted to buy. Only then would the shopkeeper take out one bead, at most 2 beads for customers to choose from. Chun was not polite. He directly chose the biggest 10 and then asked the shopkeeper to calculate. They were all unpurified demonic beads. The shopkeeper saw that Yang Chun only picked these, and his heart was slightly moved. He carefully asked, "Are you a demonic refiner?" "That's right." Yang Chun nodded and admitted, and then directly ordered, "Settle the accounts." This kind of store couldn't get a good devilish bead. The best one was in the upper 6th grade. The worst one was in the lower 6th grade. The average 6th grade was already a good harvest. It must be known that Yang Chun had not harvested a devilish bead in the past 2 years. "Shopkeeper, when will there be an auction?" After buying the devilish bead, he naturally had to ask when there would be an auction. At the auction, he could find a big high-grade devilish bead. The higher the grade of the devilish bead, the purer the devilish chi. He believed that it would be better for the 9 secluded flying sword. "You are lucky. There will be an auction in half a month." The shopkeeper was also a well-informed person, and seeing that he was slightly sorry for Yang Chun, he also specifically told him the latest news. "There is a superclass devilish master Yang Risheng, Master Yang, who may come to this gathering point in 2 or 3 months. He is a legendary figure who can completely purify the devilish bead." When the shopkeeper talked about this, he was full of excitement. "Don't you see so many masters of the Dashang stage here? They're all waiting for Master Yang to come." Yang Chun didn't think before that there would be so many masters of the Dashang stage in a gathering point that was deeper than the outermost gathering point. Now he finally understood what the reason was. It turned out to be because of him. In the last gathering point, Yang Chun said that he would come to this gathering point in 2 years. It was estimated that those who knew would spread the news, so there were so many people waiting here. This was also good. These masters had good devilish beads in their hands, which could completely meet the needs of the 9 secluded flying sword. Even without Yang Chun looking for the demonic chi to absorb, he could also exchange it for a lot of good materials like the 9 secluded flying dust. Even if there were no good materials, a large number of spirit stones could also earn more pocket money for his wives, killing many birds with 1 stone. After having the 9 secluded flying sword, the speed of absorbing the demonic chi had greatly increased. The purchased devilish bead was directly surrounded by the 9 secluded flying sword. It didn't even take 3 days for all the demonic chi to be absorbed by the 9 secluded flying sword, leaving no trace. They were all superclass devilish beads of the 6th grade. When Yang Chun was considering whether to sell them at the auction house, he suddenly found that Xiao Tian seemed to have some slight restlessness. Xiao Tian had actually been digesting the huge dragon bead. Although Yang Chun had used Xiao Tian several times before, in fact, Xiao Tian did not completely absorb the dragon chi in the dragon bead, but kept it in the body and refined it anytime and anywhere. Especially when he had nothing to do, he liked to stay in the dragon tower to cultivate. In the past few years on the demon continent, Yang Chun was afraid that Xiao Tian would also be contaminated by the demonic chi and become a demonized Yazi. In addition, for the purpose of experience, he was not willing to use Xiao Tian easily. Now from the thoughts passed by Xiao Tian, Yang Chun knew that Xiao Tian had really absorbed the dragon chi in all the dragon beads this time. This time, the dragon bead directly allowed Xiao Tian to enter the 3rd floor from the 2nd floor of the dragon tower, and its strength was abruptly improved by a level. The power of Xiao Tian was mainly reflected in the increase of the flying sword magic weapon. The higher the level, the stronger and sharper the flying sword in its mouth. In particular, the attribute that could cut everything was almost legendary. It was simply a heaven-defying existence. Even the illusory array could be directly cut in half. The 9 secluded flying sword, a magic weapon in the form of smoke, could also be cut in half against the flying sword in Xiao Tian's mouth. Xiao Tian, who had never been contaminated by the demonic chi, was actually restless about those devilish beads, which made Yang Chun a little curious. Did Xiao Tian want to swallow these devilish beads? The devilish bead that could improve the cultivation base of the cultivator Was it also useful for Xiao Tian? He just didn't know if Xiao Tian would have any obstacles to the growth of Xiao Tian in the future if he swallowed these devilish beads. Chapter 1033. With this idea in mind, Yang Chun did not avoid letting Xiao Tian know, and also passed it to Xiao Tian through the connection between the master and pet. Immediately, Xiao Tian gave a response. Delicious, great tonic. Yang Chun thought about the words that Xiao Tian passed and couldn't help but smile bitterly. In his opinion, it may affect the future cultivation, and he needed to spend a lot of effort to correct the devilish bead. In the eyes of Xiao Tian, it was just a delicious tonic. Sure enough, the origin of the dragon was different from that of human cultivators. This was also normal. Human cultivators had to cultivate the source cultivation method in order to absorb the source spiritual power, but some powerful demonic beasts could rely on their instinct to directly absorb the source spiritual power of their own attribute. There were many differences between humans and demonic beasts. This difference also existed between Xiao Tian and Yang Chun. Since Xiao Tian thought so, Yang Chun was not worried. You must know that Xiao Tian got the inheritance of the Dragon Tower and even got the inheritance of the Dragon Palace. The things that he knew about his clan must be more than Yang Chun. If he said that there was no problem, naturally there was no problem. Without thinking about it, Yang Chun threw a few purified devilish beads to Xiao Tian in the medicine garden. Xiao Tian swallowed it directly in the air. Compared with the size of Xiao Tian at the moment, a few 6th-grade devilish beads were not even qualified to fill the teeth. But Yang Chun saw that it seemed that Xiao Tian was holding the devilish bead in his mouth like a jelly bean, slowly melting and looking very delicious. This was also good. At least the devilish bead in Yang Chun's hand that had absorbed the devilish qi had a place to consume. This kind of super-class devilish bead, releasing too much would lead to a sharp decline in value, and it would also arouse the coveting of many people. With the consumption of Xiao Tian, it would not seem to be a waste. While refining his heart with the 9 secluded flying sword, Yang Chun was waiting for the auction to begin. After staying for half a month, he finally waited for this auction. However, when Yang Chun appeared again this time, someone had already recognized his identity. When the group of people saw that Yang Chun was the Master Yang they had been waiting for, the experts at the gathering point once again felt ashamed. Even when Master Yang was in trouble, they did not lend a hand. They had definitely offended Master Yang greatly. They did not know if they would have a chance to obtain the top-tier demonic baleful bead. Everyone knew what Master Yang was going to buy at the auction. Even the organizer of the auction had specially prepared 5 high-grade baleful beads. The lowest one was a lower 4th-grade bead, and the highest one was even a lower 3rd-grade bead. As expected, it was deeper than the periphery, and even the demonic baleful bead was getting bigger and bigger. Yang Chun was very satisfied. Compared to others, Yang Chun had plenty of spirit stones, so he wasn't afraid at all. He was only afraid that he wouldn't have a demonic baleful pearl. Unexpectedly, the 5 baleful demon beads were bought by Yang Chun at an unimaginably low price after a few rounds of bidding. No one offered a higher price. From the auction organizer to the owner of the baleful demon bead, it seemed that everyone had the same idea. Even the starting price was set extremely low, and the final transaction price was even lower than the market price outside. The meaning contained in this, Yang Chun, was clear. Sure enough, the rules of this auction were slightly changed. At least when Yang Chun participated last time, he handed over the spirit stones in one hand and took the baleful demon bead in the other. But this time, he waited until all the baleful demon beads were auctioned off before manager of the auction house personally invited Yang Chun to a room and presented all the baleful demon beads. Master Yang, this is a little tribute from my humble shop and several seniors. Please accept it, Master Yang. The attitude of the auction house manager was very good. His posture was extremely low and respectful. I don't lack these spirit stones. Yang Chun certainly understood and did not argue. He accepted the baleful demon bead and then left a sufficient number of spirit stones. The manager of the auction house was going to refuse, but after observing Yang Chun's face, he carefully accepted it. Thank you for giving me face, these baleful demon beads, after I purify them. please auction them. Yang Chun first gave a guarantee to the auction house, and suddenly the manager of the auction house laughed almost happily. Several seniors, please give me face, thank you for me. Giving the benefits to the auction house. Naturally, he would also give benefits to these people who provided the baleful demon bead. So Yang Chun directly gave a promise, please pass a message. If these seniors still have baleful demon beads that need to be purified, I will take it all. But there are a lot of people. Each person is limited to one, including the auction house, the people who provided the baleful demon bead, the masters who participated in the auction who did not bid for the competition, were waiting for nothing more than this promise from Yang Chun. The manager of the auction house was directly overjoyed, and flattery was sent up without any cost, and it was not seen that he was a master of the early Deshang stage. This time I may stay here for 2 years. You don't have to be anxious. There were many masters who provided the baleful demon bead, and Yang Chun needed a steady stream of demonic qi, and he could take the opportunity to repair himself. Of course, in addition to Yang Chun, there were also Yang Chen's 4 wives. For 3 years, they only saw each other for a short 10 days, and Yang Chun really missed them. What's more, with the 9 nether flying sword, Yang Chun just let the 4 wives also hone their state of mind, and everyone could get together for a few more days. Yang Chun quickly returned to his room with the baleful demon bead. The masters who had been waiting anxiously looked at the manager, who respectfully sent Yang Chun back to his room and rushed back to the auction house, waiting for his news. Master Yang said that he will stay here for 2 years. If you have a baleful demon bead in your hands, you can also go to him for purification, but each person is limited to one. The manager of the auction house naturally knew what everyone was waiting for, and announced it directly when he came back. When they heard that Yang Chun promised to purify the baleful demon bead for them, the masters of the Yuanying stage and Deshang stage cheered. What did everyone gather here and wait for? Wasn't it just to wait for Master Yang to make a move? When the peerless master wanted to kill Master Yang, none of them dared to speak up. When they found out that the one who was almost killed that day was Master Yang, who they were waiting for, it was not known how many people regretted it and stamped their feet. At that time, even if they had the courage to say a word for Master Yang, they would not have to be so careful now, right? Fortunately, Master Yang finally accepted everyone's kindness, accepted the 5 low-priced baleful demon beads, and promised to help everyone refine the baleful demon bead, which finally let everyone's heart that was in their throat down. Many people have begun to look forward to how their cultivation will be improved after they take the high-level baleful demon bead in their hands. Completely different from the ecstatic mood of the people at the gathering point of the demon continent, the Taisham inside was simply gloomy, as if the sky was about to collapse. Chapter 1034. In the Taishaman's Chuaning Hall, more than a dozen life-source jade cards exploded one after another. Such a violent movement directly shocked the disciples who guarded the Chuaning Hall. After standing there for a long time, they remembered to take these broken jade cards and hurriedly report to the sect master. More than a dozen Yuanying stage masters fell within a few breaths, which was definitely a major event. After sect masterly learned about it, he was also shocked and hurriedly summoned the core elders to discuss it. These are all people who went to the demon continent with the great elder. After sect master Li explained the situation, he added another sentence. Others don't know what these people are going to do, but the high-level people here are clear. What about the great elder himself? Another elder asked. As soon as the voice came out, he knew that he had asked a stupid question, and he immediately fell silent. To become a great elder, in addition to cultivating to a certain level, he must also take back his life source jade card, and all his primordial spirit must be sealed in that formation. Otherwise, the heavenly tribulation will come immediately. This was why the sect didn't know whether the great elder had an accident, whether they had transcended the tribulation and ascended or had already died. The elder asked this question, obviously a little anxious, and forgot this. What kind of situation could make more than a dozen masters of the late Yuanying stage and peak Yuanying stage die, one after another within a few breaths? It was very possible to say that they met the great elder of another sect, But the question was, which big sect was willing to send the Great Elder to the demon continent? These people went to hunt down Yangchun, and no one knew whether they succeeded or not. Now everyone only knew that more than a dozen masters of the late Yuanying stage and peak Yuanying stage had died. The Great Elder's life and death were unknown now, and all the followers he brought with him had fallen. This situation was simply maddening. But the demon continent was so far away. Even if someone was sent to inquire about the news, it would take more than 20 years to go back and forth. By then, they would know what had happened, and it would be too late. In any case, the loss of more than a dozen masters of the late Yuanying stage and peak Yuanying stage was also a big blow to the Taishamen. Even if the Taishamen were big, it was impossible to casually use the Yuanying stage masters as expendable cannon fodder. There was also another matter that worried these higher-ups. This was because Li Hung had brought back information about the unrestrained Devil Heart Sutra. It was a method that Senior Lu Fengzi had given him to solve Li Hung's problem. It wasn't that Senior Lu Fengzi was willing, but that Li Hung had begged him for it. Everyone had read the Freedom Devil Heart Sutra. The words were relatively ancient, but they could still find someone to translate it. For people of their cultivation, understanding the meaning of the words was too simple. The Unrestrained Demon Heart Sutra was originally a spoil of war obtained by the Taishamen many years ago when they were slaying demons and defending the Tao. After that, it had been stored in the sutra depository of the sect. No one was interested in the techniques of the demon sect. Coupled with the language barrier, it was gradually forgotten. Now it had been dug out by someone. After the upper echelon saw it, they came to a unanimous conclusion that it was not a Taoist mental cultivation method at all, but a demonic cultivation method. This was a kind of demonic cultivation method that improved the cultivation of the cultivator by harming others. It was different from the dual cultivation. People who practiced dual cultivation would improve together. Even if it was like sect master Li who used people as cauldrons, it would not be completely exhausted, but there was a priority and priority. The person who was used as a cauldron would not die, and, secondly, it would only delay some of the cultivation time. Even so, some stubborn Taoist sects regarded human beings as a cauldron as a crooked way. But compared with the Unrestrained Demon Heart Sutra, it was simply normal to the bones. The Unrestrained Demon Heart Sutra was simply to eat people. Eating people may be a bit exaggerated, but it was definitely to rely on the life of the cauldron to improve their own cultivation, and the cauldron would die very miserably. Because Li Hung wanted to improve his spiritual awareness, the person who was the cauldron would be abruptly pulled out of the body when the spiritual awareness activity was the most intense. Usually, this kind of intense activity was the most painful time, and this was in addition to the tragic moment when one's consciousness was extracted at the end. The final outcome was to die in infinite pain. And the price of this was only to increase the spiritual awareness of the person who practiced the Unrestrained Demon Heart Sutra by less than 10%. And the premise was that the spiritual awareness of the cauldron must be higher than that of the person who practiced the Unrestrained Demon Heart Sutra. In addition, it must be the opposite sex. If Li Hung really wanted to practice this cultivation method, then according to estimates, Li Hung would need at least hundreds of cauldrons to completely get rid of the dependence on spirit congealing pills. In the past, the demonic cultivators who practiced the Unrestrained Demon Heart Sutra were eliminated by a certain predecessor of the Taishamen. Could it be that the younger generation of the Taishamen also wanted to practice this kind of evil cultivation method in turn? Everyone was arguing, and in the end, there was no conclusion, letting the young sect master of the Taishamen, who had always been the orthodox leader of the Taoist sects, to practice this kind of demonic cultivation method. It was really unbelievable. After all, in the end, everyone just put it aside. Anyway, there were still a lot of spirit congealing pills. Even if it was consumed, it was enough for Li Hung to consume for many years. Maybe before the spirit congealing pills were consumed, there was no need to consider this problem. Of course, Li Hung was not happy with such a result. If he was an honest and dutiful person who wholeheartedly relied on himself to cultivate, he wouldn't have begged ancestor Lu Fengzi to improve his cultivation base. However, the conclusion of the high level could not be overturned and changed by Li Liheng, so he could only suppress his dissatisfaction and accept the arrangement of the sect. The unhappiness of the young sect master was naturally seen in the eyes of Yang Lan. Under her gentle offensive, Li Liheng was intoxicated and inadvertently vented his dissatisfaction. As a result, the news of the unrestrained Demon Heart Sutra reached Yang Lan's ears through Yang Lan. Yang Lan was now wholeheartedly flattering Li Liheng. Without Li Liheng, he would have been sentenced to death. Because he followed Li Liheng, now Yang Lan almost got what he wanted. No one in the sect would easily offend him. Since the master had troubles now, he naturally needed him as a pawn to share the worries. Unrestrained Demon Heart Sutra. He remembered this name. When he had the opportunity to enter the scriptures pavilion in the future, he would carefully look for this cultivation method and bring it out to Li Liheng. Yang Lan fully believed that as long as he fawned on Li Liheng, when Li Liheng became the master of the Taishaman sect one day, that would be the time for him, Yang Lan, to show his great ambition. At that time, not to mention the fifth-grade alchemist, even the entire Chunyang Palace, Yang Lan would let them leave nothing behind. The whole erasure would eliminate the hatred in his heart. Chapter 1035. Yang Chen doesn't care what happens here in Taishaman. Anyway, they have lost another great elder. It is estimated that Taishaman will be distressed to death. Now in this gathering point, Yang Chen and Li Cheng are definitely the two people who can't be provoked, but relatively speaking, Yang Chen is more popular. Since he promised to purify the devilish bead, Yang Chen's residence has been crowded. For this reason, Yang Chen had to add a rule that he could only receive one person a day. The reward for purifying the devilish bead. Yang Chen has also changed to the priority of fire seeds. Of course, it is the fire seeds that Yang Chen does not have for the time being. On the demon continent, there are many kinds of demons mixed together. There are many fire seeds that are not available in the Tao sects, which are enough to supplement Yang Chen's yin-yang heaven-burning fire. In just 10 days, Yang Chen has received dozens of kinds of demonic fires. There are both high and low-grade ones. This made Yang Chen get the sweetness. He immediately announced to the public that he would buy fire seeds without limit. Suddenly, some masters who have fire seeds in their hands were happy. With the demonic fire, there is a chance for Master Yang to purify the devilish bead and improve their own cultivation base. The 9 secluded flying sword has absorbed a lot of demonic chi these days. The devilish bead itself was condensed by the demonic beast, and the concentration of demonic chi is extremely high. In just 10 days, although it has not recovered to the original level of the demonic vine, it has already been comparable to some ordinary devilish bead. Xiao Tian also slowly adapted to the atmosphere here, because he has a small devilish bead as a candy every day. This change made Yang Chen very happy. If Xiao Tian can withstand the invasion of the demonic chi, then the 9 secluded flying sword can play a more powerful role. However, this process has just begun. Yang Chen still doesn't know whether Xiao Tian, as a dragon, can withstand a higher concentration of demonic chi. He needs to experiment carefully. Otherwise, if something goes wrong with Xiao Tian, Yang Chen doesn't know where to cry. After waiting at the gathering point for dozens of days, Yang Chen finally waited for his wife. But this time, Gao Yu, who was the last one last time, was now the first one. They hadn't seen each other for another 2 years. Yang Chen missed his wife to death. From the day Gao Yu appeared, the people at the gathering point consciously did not disturb Yang Chen. There seemed to be endless words between the two. For several days, Yang Chen was reluctant to part with Gao Yu. This time, Yang Chen asked Gao Yu to stay and wait for the 4 women to gather. Gao Yu was certainly obedient. When he learned from Yang Chen that the Grand Elder of Taishaman had appeared, he was so nervous that he almost forgot himself. But later on, when he found out that the Grand Elder was beheaded by Li Cheng, he was even more shocked. Yang Chen was already unexpected enough. Who would have thought that Li Cheng would go even further? When the 4 women gathered, everyone was even happier. Yang Chen then explained to the 4 women the intention of letting them gather together this time. After another 2 years of experience, The killing intent of the four women has gradually begun to fade, and it is no longer the uncontrollable situation when they met 2 years ago. Not enough, it can only be partially controlled, and it still can't be completely eliminated. It will take a longer time of experience to master. At present, this level of the 9 secluded flying sword is just a good thing for the four women to temper their state of mind. If it goes further, it may trigger a serious heart devil, leading to unpredictable consequences. The four women were all surprised by this method proposed by Yangchun. People who come to the demon continent, which one is not careful to avoid the devil chi, for fear of the invasion of the devil chi. Yangchun unexpectedly did the opposite and used the devil chi to temper his state of mind. Her husband was indeed different from the rest. Li Cheng said that the most important thing to prevent the devil chi was a strong spiritual awareness and a strong will. These two conditions were all met by the four women. Although they were all in the early Yuanying stage, their spiritual awareness had already reached the Desheng stage, which was a big realm difference, enough to resist this level of devil chi. What's more, there was Yangchun around. If he found something wrong, he could immediately stop the 9 secluded flying sword, which was an additional layer of insurance. In such a situation, triggering various emotional fluctuations was indeed the most appropriate way to get used to adapting to the heart devil. It was a bit risky, but which kind of cultivation was not risky? Coming to the demon continent was a risk in itself. Of course, the four women would not refuse Yangchun's arrangement. In the beginning, Yangchun's control of the devil chi was slight. The naughty son Qingxue relied on the stable will of the Dao sex cultivator and underestimated the enemy. As a result, she was surrounded by the 9 secluded flying sword, and immediately there was an abnormality. They didn't know what sad things the devil chi had induced in son Qingxue, so that son Qingxue lay in Yangchun's arms and cried for a whole day and night before she calmed down. This was still the case when Yangchun controlled it from the beginning and did not let the devil chi fully affect it, and immediately stopped when he saw the situation was not good. After this incident, the women no longer dared to underestimate it, and all took it seriously. With some warnings explained by Yangchun, coupled with their own willpower, they began to frantically resist the invasion of the devil chi in all directions. Yangchun did not tell them at the beginning that their emotions needed to erupt and guide them. He just tried his best to maintain their safety. Some experiences could not be valued the most by telling them. After all, it was only after they had suffered a loss that they would be impressed. Some things, if you don't experience it once, how can you know how to deal with it? Moreover, people were different, and Yangchun's method was not omnipotent, and everyone was suitable. The four women were all talented people, and he believed that they could find the most suitable way to deal with it by themselves. Compared with fighting outside, this kind of experience of dealing with the hard devil was more difficult. In any case, fighting only needed to find the opponent's weakness and then attack it yourself. But now it was the opposite. The heart devil found their own weakness and kept attacking. Even if there was no life-threatening danger for the time being, the degree of danger was no less than killing the demons outside. The four women slowly adapted and began to find suitable ways to resist. And Yangchun also began to slowly increase the invasion of the devil chi, and the devil chi that the four women had to deal with was getting stronger and stronger. Yangchun himself, while protecting the four women, received the business of purifying the devil bead from the outside, while using the profound spirit furnace to absorb the fire seed. And at the same time, he also fused the 4th grade fire seed into the yin-yang heaven-burning fire. Cultivation was something to be carried out all the time. Even Xiao Tian, under the condition that he could taste a small devil bead every day, gradually became more adapted to the devil chi. So far, Yangchun has not found any signs of Xiao Tian being demonized by the devil chi. This also meant that the great yin and yang 5 elements flying sword that Xiao Tian would control in the future would not lack his own Earth 9 secluded flying sword. Time flew by, and 2 years passed in a blink of an eye. The madness caused by the devil bead continued, but Yangchun's family of 5 had already planned to go deeper into the demon continent. Chapter 1036. Yang Shan was planning to go deeper into the demon continent to gain experience, and in the depths of the demon continent, a group of people had just received the news that someone on the periphery could completely purify the devilish bead. These people were located in a huge valley. In the valley, almost like a gathering point, there were all kinds of buildings. There were at least thousands of people gathered in the valley. In the valley, the richness of the demonic chi was beyond people's imagination. The black demonic chi was like a substance covering the entire valley. Here, there was no need to think about seeing any scenery with the naked eye. If you want to move around here without a strong spiritual awareness, it was simply impossible. If someone came to see this valley, they would be shocked from ear to ear. Of all the people in this huge valley, the worst was also a master of the early Deshang stage. No matter which sect they were in, it was a terrifying deterrent. What made many sect glad was that the people here were not from a sect. No sect could casually come up with thousands of masters of the Deshang stage. Even the first sect of the Dao sects, Taishaman, was the same. Of course, if calculated according to the masters of the Taishaman, it was far more than this number. All the masters were dressed in black robes with black veils covering their faces, and they even spoke less to each other. However, all of them had one thing in common. Everyone was from the demon sect, and the cultivation method they practiced was the kind of demonic chi. With so many people together, it gave people a feeling of falling into a devil's cave. The news was also brought by a master of the Deshang stage. If Yang Shan was present, he would definitely find that this guy was one of the masters of the gathering point at that time. What happened in the gathering point, except for the trouble stirred up by the great elder of the Taishaman? The master who brought the news said it very clearly. As for the matter of the great elder, one was that he couldn't save his face, and the other was that he didn't know what thoughts he had in his heart, so he didn't disclose it. The news spread quickly. At first, many people didn't believe it, but when a master who came back showed the pure, golden, devilish bead that had been purified by Yang Chun, everyone began to stir. These guys who cultivated in the place with the densest demonic chi were not from the Dao sects. They were all masters of the demonic path. The Dao sects and the demonic sects were just two ways of cultivation. They had the same goal by different means, and there was no complete right or wrong distinction. Especially at the stage of the Deshang stage, when it came to the firmness of the heart, maybe the people in the demonic sects might be better. The demonic path cultivators could cultivate to the Deshang stage. It was not known how many terrifying heart demons they had overcome. It can almost be said that they had stepped on various heart demons along the way. Every time, he would struggle on the line between life and death. It would not be an exaggeration to say that the mental state of an expert who had gone through such tempering was as tough as iron. On this point, if the Taoist sects were to lay a solid foundation and then cultivate step by step, there would never be so many inner demons. Therefore, from the perspective of dealing with inner demons, a Taoist expert at the Mahayana stage might not be able to compare to a demon sect cultivator at the same cultivation level. The fact that they could of the demonic chi of the demonic path to of the realm, of the demonic path of the sect, was the demonic path. From the perspective of cultivation alone, the demonic chi could make some ordinary beasts evolve into powerful demonic beasts, which could naturally promote cultivation. From the perspective of cultivation alone, demonic chi could allow some ordinary demonic beasts to evolve into powerful demonic beasts. Naturally, it could promote cultivation. From a perspective of cultivation alone, the demonic chi could make some ordinary beasts evolve into powerful demonic beasts, which could naturally promote cultivation. The reason why these demonic path masters gathered here was also based on the use of the demonic chi for cultivation. It was just that people who didn't go deep into the demon continent couldn't understand it at all. It was self-evident what a demon refiner who could completely purify the demonic chi meant for these demonic path masters. Although everyone looked calm and collected on the surface, their hearts were surging with wild waves. Outsiders didn't know what they were going to do in this valley, and the people here would never reveal it easily. However, looking at everyone's cautious look, it seemed that something big had happened here, which was very puzzling. Yang Chun had no idea what was happening here. He was now planning to leave the gathering point again and carry out killing experience again. After 2 years of the demonic tempering of the 9 nether flying sword, the 4 women didn't know how many times they had experienced the demonic chi in their hearts. In the beginning, there were all kinds of emotional outbursts. Fortunately, Yang Chun had been taking care of them, so there were no accidents. In the short span of 2 years, the 4 women had never thought that they would have such rich imagination and emotions. They could clearly remember the small things that they had forgotten many years ago, and they could even cause all kinds of incredible emotions to erupt because of these small things. That kind of feeling, those who had not experienced it were simply unimaginable. How was this an orthodox Tao sect disciple? It was just like a demon sect disciple. But it had to be said that the effect of this kind of tempering was very significant. It was just a short period of 2 years, or even a retreat could pass, but they seemed to have experienced thousands of years. They didn't dare to say that their minds were unparalleled, but any heart demon that the average Tao sect disciple could encounter was meaningless to them. However, not everyone has the experience of suffering in his previous life like Yang Chun. Even the 4 women with excellent aptitudes showed a more and more exhausted posture in this kind of heart demon tempering. Because of exhaustion, it triggered a series of negative effects. Although it was only 2 years, it seemed that a long time had passed, and even the 4 women were a little irritated. Before coming back, they were just able to restrain their killing intent, and the outbreak of various emotions caused those killing intent to appear again. In this case, it was unrealistic to carry out the heart demon tempering again, but it would make the 4 women fall into a more powerful heart demon. Now, the most suitable thing for the 4 women was to let the 4 women vent their emotions. In addition to the crazy demand every time she was with Yang Chun, the more effective way was to kill. In the demon continent, the only thing that was not lacking was killing. Outside the gathering point, there were thousands of demonized monsters. They could kill them at will, and there was no need to feel any guilt. The 4 women's killing intent that had been suppressed for a long time could finally be released again. They hurriedly said goodbye to Yang Chun, and after making an appointment for the next meeting place, they couldn't wait to plunge into the killing field outside. There had never been a moment when the killing intent in the hearts of the 4 women was so urgent, and there was no hatred at all. It was completely spontaneous to vent their inner emotions with killing. Chapter 10:37. In fact, even Yang Chun himself, after such a long period of experience caused by the demonic chi, was also a little tired. Emotions were not something that could be eliminated just because one's cultivation was high. They existed all the time, anywhere at any time. Anyone, at any time, in any place, would maintain at least one emotion. Whether it was joy, anger, sorrow, or calmness, there was always one. This kind of illusory thing was like a shadow following the body. Normally, people would not care about it during cultivation, but once it was detonated by the devil chi, it would be magnified by thousands of times. For cultivators, it would mean a terrible disaster. A little resentment in the heart, after being magnified by the devil chi, would become a gnashing hatred and irreconcilable hatred. It was not an easy thing to maintain one's state of mind under this level. Not to mention this kind of negative emotion, even happy things like happiness would become extremely dangerous after being magnified thousands of times. When people are excited, they will definitely do some unimaginable things. As for the calmness of not changing one's expression, even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of one's eyes, wasn't calmness also a kind of emotional state? When the serene calmness was magnified countless times, there were no more thoughts in one's heart. What was the difference between one and a stone? For a stone, what was the point of cultivating or not cultivating? Perhaps this was the most dangerous state. The concentration of the devil chi that Yang Chun used for the experience was dozens of times that of the 4 women. The power of the 9 nether flying sword. The 4 women could only bear at most 10%, and Yang Chun alone faced the remaining 90%. Fortunately, the experience of Yang Chun's previous life and the state of mind of the great principal Golden Immortal also helped a lot. Even if he suppressed his emotional resistance, coupled with the maintenance of the safety of the four women, he still survived this period of time. In addition to experiencing the cruel training, Yang Qin's only gain was that he had a better understanding of his nine-nether flying sword. It seemed that there was no other way to defend against the emotional weapon except to resist it. In the past 2 years, Li Cheng had been in retreat in the gathering point. He came out almost every few months, and no one knew what he was cultivating. But no one dared to be negligent in the entire gathering point. Every time Li Cheng came out, he was served with fear. Every time Li Cheng came out of seclusion, he would look for Yang Chen for a drink. These few days of drinking were also considered as days of rest for Yang Chen and the four women. Every time, Li Cheng returned to his heart's content, but every time he looked at Yang Chen, his gaze seemed to have changed. There was surprise, gratification, and even a faint joy. After sending off the four women, it was just in time for Li Cheng to come out of seclusion again. Naturally, the two of them drank to their heart's content. While Yang Chen and Li Cheng were drinking, the entire gathering point was completely silent. Even the birds that tried to fly over the gathering point were killed by a group of experts from all directions. Everyone in the gathering point was trembling with fear, afraid that something would disturb the two's drinking. The scene of Yang Chen holding the flying sword empty-handed and Li Cheng killing Tai Shan with one sword was still vivid in their minds. If it weren't for the fact that they were still looking forward to more devilish beads coming out from Yang Chen, the people here would have already avoided here. After drinking to their heart's content, Yang Chen also expressed to Li Cheng that he wanted to leave. Li Cheng nodded and didn't ask much. He just cupped his fists and said faintly, "In that case, see you later. See you later." Yang Chen also cupped his fists in response, then got up and strode away from the gathering point. It seemed that Li Cheng's thoughtful gaze had been following him. After saying goodbye to Li Cheng, under the reluctant gaze of the experts at the gathering point, Yang Chen stepped out of the gathering point. Breathing the familiar air filled with demonic energy, the Nine Serenities flying sword appeared directly around him, turned into a large cloud of black mist, and disappeared into the jungle. As soon as Yang Chen left, the people at the gathering point, except for those who were doing business at the gathering point, no one else wanted to stay here anymore. In less than half a day, everyone left. What a joke! A guy who could kill a Tai Shang master with one sword had nothing to do here. If there was no attraction of devilish bead, who would stay and enjoy this kind of fear? Yang Chen, who entered the jungle, also randomly found a direction deep into the demon continent, and then after flying wildly for hundreds of miles, he swept away the demonized beast that appeared around him regardless of anything, and the sense of exhaustion in his heart was slightly relieved. It was undeniable that killing without burden was really a good way to relieve pressure. Even Yang Chen, who had a strong mind, felt a little relaxed at this time. The time for the next meeting with the four women was 5 years later. This period of time was enough for Yang Chen to ease his mood and continue to cultivate. Yang Chen moved unhurriedly toward the depths of the continent, and all the demonized beasts he encountered along the way were killed. The Nine Serenities flying sword could still work even in the face of the demonized beasts encountered here. Now the demonic energy condensed on the Nine Serenities flying sword was far stronger than that of the demonized beasts encountered here. When the instincts of the demonized beasts were further amplified, the demonized beasts that could only withstand the invasion of the demonic energy were naturally more deeply demonized. Under the influence of the Nine Serenities flying sword, these demonized beasts even had hallucinations and began to go crazy. They were easily killed by Yang Chen with a sword and then absorbed the demonic energy. The effect of the heart demon refining was reflected in Yang Chen's body. Even if he allowed those demonized beasts to pounce on him, the demonic energy carried by the beasts had no effect on Yang Chen himself. Coupled with the golden bell and the yellow turban strongman body refining technique, even if Yang Chen stood in place and let those demonized beasts attack him, he would be unscathed. Other people, unless they were already familiar with the attack of the demonic energy, otherwise, once they were injured by the demonized beasts, they would inevitably be attacked by the demonic energy. In addition to healing, they had to divide their energy to fight against the demonic energy. But such a situation was meaningless for Yang Chun, and he could completely omit this step. To be realistic, even if the heavenly tribulation came now, Yang Chun did not have to worry about the heart demon, at least in the first few rounds of the heavenly tribulation. Unless the heart demon oath was broken. Otherwise, there was no need to worry about the heart demon at all. However, Yang Chun did not forget the original intention of the experience. After almost such a wanton killing for a month or two, Yang Chun stopped and switched to the Blood Phantom Vine Flying Sword. Only in the last blow, he would use the 9 serenities of Flying Sword to attack and absorb the demonic energy of the demonized beasts. Unfortunately, the Immortal Beheading Blade has not yet been completely tempered. Otherwise, the great Yin Yang 5 Elements Flying Sword would have such an effect directly. Chapter 1038. After emotional tempering, there was endless killing. The demon continent was a huge whetstone, sharpening all the sober people on the road into a sharp and unparalleled peerless sword. For Yang Chun, the demon continent was the biggest unknown after his rebirth. He didn't know what else would be in it, and what strange things would appear. What he had to do now was to grow in killing according to his consistent experience. At this moment, the demonized monsters faced by Yang Chun were basically in the late Yuanying stage and peak Yuanying stage, which were much stronger than those monsters on the periphery of the continent. Even if it was the same realm of demonized monsters, the ones here were more powerful than those on the periphery. The most important thing was that the monsters here did not know for what reason. They were naturally in groups and were extremely fierce. In the case of Yang Chun's deliberate experience, he had to play 12 points of spirit to be able to barely cope with it. Yang Chun did not use the Golden Bell and deliberately converged the yellow turban strongman body refining technique, which only worked on the bones, which could ensure that Yang Chun would not be fatally injured, but he would not be unharmed at all. It was impossible to not be injured at all. Yang Chun knew very well that during the experience, it was better to be injured than not to be injured. For this reason, Yang Chun had to specially study how to be injured. If he was slightly injured, or even how to use non-fatal serious injuries in exchange for certain opportunities. No matter who it was, there was no guarantee that they would not meet someone stronger than themselves, and it was impossible to never be hurt in their life. Once encountered such a critical time, how to react after being injured, how to fight back, these experiences were the capital to save their lives in the future. Yang Chun was not only cruel to himself, but even to his wives. Even if his 4 wives were all outstanding beauties, compared with the future, these small injuries could not be considered at all. Moreover, with Yang Chun there would be no problem no matter how serious the injury was, and it was guaranteed that it would not leave any scars. This time, no one deliberately drove the demonic beasts to besiege Yang Chun. However, the deeper they went, the more dangerous it was. As Yang Chun advanced, he was attacked more and more severely. Although Yang Chun and the 4 women were good, everyone had the ability to fight a Deshang stage demonized monster. But Yang Chun was cautious and would never allow everyone to go too deep. This was a place that he could not grasp. Yang Chun knew what kind of cultivation was suitable for training. After walking for almost an entire year, Yang Chun finally found a demonic bead. However, these nascent soul stage demonic beasts could only condense a demonic baleful pearl that was around the middle of the 6th grade. The one in Yang Chun's hand was even smaller, around the upper 7th grade. The candy beans that Xiao Tian enjoys now, casually taking out one, are more than twice as big as this one. In any case, there's finally some gain. Although if Yang Chun wanted the demonic baleful bead, as long as he moved his mouth, countless people would offer it with their hands. But how could there be a sense of accomplishment that he found it himself? Yang Chun took this demonic baleful bead and shrugged his shoulders helplessly. There was no way around it. This was a place that he had never been in his memory, and he couldn't control it. Moreover, the good luck that he had in the Dao Sect's territory had disappeared completely. After 4 years of killing, he only got 3 demonic baleful beads. However, thinking of the head-sized demonic baleful bead in his Chinquan bag, Yang Chen couldn't help but feel pity for the guys who work hard to gain experience here. Just a few days after coming here, he got a heaven-defying divine object in the outermost periphery. Those people have been here for hundreds of years, but they can only take the third-grade demonic baleful bead as a treasure. The fate of people and people really can't be compared. If someone knew that Yang Chen got a head-sized demonic baleful bead and lamented his bad luck here, there would definitely be countless people chasing him to death with a flying sword. They had never seen such a guy who got a bargain and still wanted to show off. This could be tolerated. What couldn't be tolerated? The demonic baleful bead in his hand. Yang Chen carefully looked at it for a long time. Then he took it in his hand and played with it. By the way, he calmly said in a certain direction, "You have followed for so long. What do you want to say?" Ha ha! Grandmaster Yang is really extraordinary. Before the person arrived, there was a burst of laughter. Soon, a figure appeared in front of Yang Chen. It's not that I'm boasting. My invisibility technique can't be detected by ordinary masters, not to mention the demonized beasts. I'm very curious. How did Grandmaster Yang find me? The person who came was a tall man, very handsome, dressed in a variety of dark green and light green robes. It looked like a large piece of fine jungle. Not to mention anything else, this robe alone could make him hide his figure in the jungle. Ordinary people with poor eyesight could not find him at all. The demonic chi on your body is rich, much richer than the surroundings. Looking at the strange attire of the other party, Yang Chen didn't care. He just mentioned it lightly as an answer to the other party. In fact, Yang Chen had long discovered that someone was tracking himself. The spiritual awareness threads cultivated by the three purities secret art were scattered around, like a spider web. Anything that was touched will be known by Yang Chen. In this way, it was just to give the other party an acceptable explanation. So that's how it is. The man in the strange robe suddenly understood. He also followed Yang Chen's hints and began to uncover the secret of Yang Chen discovering him. Yang Chen was a very powerful demon refiner. He could completely purify the demonic chi of the devilish bead. Naturally, he had a deep understanding of the demonic chi. When he found out where the demonic chi was strong, and he couldn't see any monster or human figure, he could naturally judge that someone was hiding. Grandmaster is really powerful. I admire you. The man in the strange robe cupped his hands at Yang Chen and said very sincerely, "Grandmaster, you're the third one who can find my trace here. I admire you." After saying this, the man in the strange robe waited for Yang Chen to speak. Everyone would be curious. When they heard that they were the third, they would definitely ask who the first two were. In this way, the two sides would have further topics to discuss, and the relationship would be closer because of this. This trick of the man in the strange robe almost worked every time, but this time he encountered a mysterious gourd. After Yang Chen heard him say this, he just made a very understated "oh" sound, and then there was no following. He didn't ask who the first two were, nor did he ask his own identity and the purpose of being here. The atmosphere suddenly became stiff. The man in the strange robe stood for a while and saw that Yang Chen had no intention of speaking at all. His face was a little embarrassed. However, since he was here, he must make his purpose clear. He could only speak first. Chapter 1039. Master, don't you want to know why I'm looking for you? The look on the man in the strange robe's face did not change, but there was a little embarrassment in his eyes. He looked at Yang Chen and asked. In his heart, if he said this, Yang Chen should ask, right? I don't want to. Yang Chen's answer directly blocked the man in the strange robe's next words in his throat. It was extremely uncomfortable. How could this be? The man in the strange robe really couldn't see through Yang Chen. Was Yang Chen not curious? Generally, when a cultivator encounters this kind of thing, even if he doesn't do it in the future, he would at least understand it. How could he not be curious at all? What he didn't know was that Yang Chen had suffered a lot because of curiosity in the process of tempering his heart. How could he easily take the initiative to ask? However, Yang Chen also knew that since the other party came to the door, there must be something. No matter what he said, the other party would still say it in the end, so why bother? In fact, I came to find the master because I have something to ask. The man in the strange robe saw Yang Chun like this, and there was no way. He endured the embarrassment and continued to speak, as if he was talking to himself. He also knew that Yang Chun would definitely not answer. So he continued directly, Master can completely purify the devil chi on the devil bead. I think you have a deep understanding of the devil chi. I am not talented. I want to ask the master to go to a place to help study it. After it is done, there will be a reward. What if I don't want to? Yang Chen finally answered the question of the man in the strange robe. This made the man in the strange robe finally breathe a sigh of relief. As long as he opened his mouth, the rest would be easy. It's a big deal, and it's not just about me. So if the master really doesn't want to cooperate, I can only offend you. The man in the strange robe still maintained that kind of attitude, but his words were full of threats. Yang Chun was only in the early yuanying stage, but the man in the strange robe was already in the middle Deshang stage. The cultivation realm between the two was more than a big realm. No matter from which point of view, the man in the strange robe seemed to eat Yang Chun. If he didn't need Yang Chen's help, he might have already taken action. You're welcome? Yang Chun suddenly laughed. Aren't you afraid that I won't do my best when I help you? Precisely because of this, I do not wish for such a situation to occur. The strange robe man also had a smile on his face as he gently explained, Actually, it's not a big deal. I just want the Grandmaster to purify some demonic chi. The location is a bit special, so I'm sure the Grandmaster won't refuse. Otherwise, Grandmaster's close female friends and that friend called Li Chung might encounter some trouble. The other party used the people around Yang Chun to threaten Yang Chun. Yang Chun was not surprised at all. These guys might have been watching the four women the moment they left the gathering point and were just waiting for Yang Chen's attitude. But what Yang Chen didn't expect was that these guys dared to hit Li Chung. Not to mention that Li Chung was the first master that Yang Chun couldn't see through after his rebirth. Li Cheng's sword cut off the head of the Great Elder. He believed that there were few people in the world who dared to touch him. Were these people's brains broken, or were they deliberately doing this? After thinking about it, Yang Chun seemed to know some of the reasons. Maybe when these people investigated, they didn't know that Li Chung had killed a great master. Those people in the gathering point at that time, except for Yang Chun and Li Chung, were all scared and didn't dare to say a word. That kind of shameful thing. How could they tell others? The strange robe man's group didn't even find out the details of Li Chung, and they dared to use Li Chung to threaten Yang Chun. I'm afraid that at most, they only know that Yang Chun and Li Chung have had a few drinks, so they thought they were good friends, so they used them to threaten Yang Chun. They didn't know that the relationship between Yang Chun and Li Chung was far from being friends. Yang Chun now wanted to see the expression of one or a group of masters on the other side when they were going to be rude to Li Chung, and suddenly found that Li Chung was not a lamb waiting to be slaughtered, but a ferocious tiger. It's just that things also involve Gao Yu, Shi Shan, and the other four women. Yang Chun had to be a little cautious. What's the matter? Yang Chun finally opened his mouth and took the initiative to ask. It's very simple, Grandmaster. What you are good at is purifying the demonic energy. The strange robe man's face suddenly showed a relaxed smile. If Yang Chun was willing to ask this, then there was a way. It's just going deeper into the demon continent. What are the benefits? Yang Chun still used the tone of negotiating with the Taishaman Hall, Master Mao. Naked interests. Spirit stones, magic weapons, medicinal pills, Grandmaster, whatever you want, you can have it. The strange robe man was even more happy. Since he asked about the reward, then everything was easy to say. The trouble that could be solved with spirit stones was not trouble at all. In the midst of his joy, he seemed to think of something and immediately added, if the Grandmaster likes beautiful women, then it's even simpler. 4 Dashang stage cauldrons. When the Grandmaster wants them, they will be sent to the Grandmaster. It had to be said that the tone of the strange robed man was too big. The spirit stones and magic weapons in the front were still okay. After all, they were worldly possessions, but he actually sent 4 Dashang stage beauties so easily, and they were even used as cauldrons. This could not help but make people marvel at his generosity. Those were 4 masters of the Dashang stage. It was not easy to cultivate to the realm of the Dashang stage, especially the beautiful women, which were rare. How could they be willing to be cauldrons? Especially as a cauldron for a junior in the early Yuanying stage? Unless it was a prominent person like the Taishaman sect master. Maybe it was possible. The identity of the strange robed man was not known, but he dared to make such a promise, which made people wonder what he was asking for. No matter what he was going to do, one thing was certain. It was by no means a small matter to invite Yang Chun at such a big price. According to the general analysis, if the benefits were not 10 times or dozens of times more than the remuneration given to outsiders, this business would never be done. Such a big thing. Yang Chun was really curious. But Yang Chun was also aware of the risks. After a little thought, he asked again, with such a big capital, but also deep into the mainland, there must be great danger. How can my safety be guaranteed? Not waiting for the strange robed man to answer, Yang Chun continued. Also, Li Cheng is a friend of mine. I would like to go with him. I don't know if he can satisfy this small request of mine. This kind of thing, if Li Cheng was also involved, there would be a lot of fun things to happen. Yang Chun could not help but look forward to it. Chapter 1040. As long as the Grandmaster agrees, everything can be said. Listening to Yang Chun's intention to let go, the man in the strange robe was naturally overjoyed and hurriedly agreed. I don't lack spirit stones, I don't need magic weapons for the time being, I just need a few things. Since Yang Chun had made a decision to go and see, naturally he would not be polite with the man in the strange robe and directly ask for it. Grandmaster, please instruct. The man in the strange robe was even happier. Yang Chun said this. He had already agreed, only looking at the price. However, to people like them, what price tag couldn't they take out? Fire seeds, the more the better, whether it is a demon fire or a devil fire, no matter what grade, I want it. Yang Chun first put forward the things he wanted the most this time. I don't care what it is, at least 10 kinds of 6th grade fire seeds, 20 kinds of 5th grade fire seeds, 100 kinds of 4th grade fire seeds, and no less than 500 kinds of fire seeds below the 4th grade. If there are more, I will exchange the extra fire seeds with the devil bead. Hearing this condition, the man in the strange robe was about to say something, but was directly stopped by Yang Chun. It's not that I'm asking for a lion's share. I think the senior also knows how big the things you're going to do are. Yang Chun's reason was very good and righteous. This thing is not done by the senior alone. You have so many masters of the Deshang stage who can't do it. Let this younger generation junior do it. The risk of this is not known. There are not enough benefits. If it is the senior, would you be willing? These words were very reasonable. At least in the ears of the man in the strange robe, there was nothing to refute for the time being. However, who was he? He was not a master of reason in the Tao sections. In the demon sects, when needed, who would reason with you? But the man in the strange robe did not speak for the time being, let alone answer. He had already seen that Yang Chun seemed to be unfinished. It seemed that there were still conditions that had not been finished. Simply let Yang Chun put forward all the conditions first. As for whether to agree or not, when he arrived at the place, could it be up to him to decide? He just listened to the silly boy talk and relieve boredom. What other conditions are there? To say it all at once so that we don't have to haggle over the price one by one. It's not fun, the strange robed man said quickly without a change in expression. Pill recipe, Yang Chun said without hesitation. It doesn't matter if it's the demon clan or the demon clan. There can't be less than 20 pill recipes for those above the nascent soul stage. Above the Yuanying stage, that was the pill recipe for the Deshang stage. This time, Yang Chun was like meeting a rich man. He opened his mouth and did not mean to be polite at all. The man in the strange robe had another idea. Naturally, he would not bargain with Yang Chun. Instead, he urged him to finish all the conditions and even reminded him of any omissions. Don't you want magic treasures and materials? For people like us, as long as we achieve our goals, we don't care what price we have to pay. The man in the strange robe advised, as long as it's worth it, it's just a worldly possession. The best iron metal, 9th water materials, all kinds of spiritual power, if there is, I can exchange it with the demon bead or spirit stones. Yang Chun also knew that he couldn't go too far, so these things were just the needs of the exchange, and it was not necessary. Now most of the great yin and yang 5 elements flying sword has been formed. The first would Punlai Divine with flying sword. The second would Blood Phantom Vine flying sword. The third Fire Bright Light sword. The fourth Fire flying sword made by himself. The fifth Earth Living Soil flying sword. The sixth Earth 9 Secluded flying sword. The seventh Metal Immortal blade. The ninth Water Tashaman's flying sword. The 10th Water Dragon Bone flying sword. Only the 8th Metal flying sword was missing. However, the 9th Water flying sword Tashaman took out was very good, but it was still a little short of Yang Chen's requirements. It needed to be refined with some advanced materials. The current 9th Water flying sword was just a sword embryo at best, not a 9th Water flying sword. The original spiritual power already had the first wood, the third fire, the fourth fire, the fifth earth, the sixth earth, the seventh metal, the 9th water, and the 10th water. It was still missing the second wood true essence and the 8th metal true essence. If it could be collected, the great yin and yang 5-element secret art would be almost complete. Only the third fire true secret art was missing. Of course, these were all things that Yang Chen hoped to encounter by luck. Even if he proposed it, he did not expect to get it. But maybe these masters had it, and Yang Chen would never refuse it if he could exchange it. There's nothing else for the time being, but there is one thing, the demon bead that I got by purifying the magic aura on the way belongs to me. Yang Chen thought about it, and there was no other request. After the last one was mentioned, he finally didn't want more. The man in the strange robe listened with a smile on his face, but his heart was already sneering again and again. It was reasonable to say that they had a big plan this time, and it was understandable to use these prices in exchange for Yang Chen's help. But then again, they were either a demonic cultivator or a monster cultivator. In this lawless demon continent, if you want something, do you really have to pay any price? No problem. Master, let's go on the road. The man in the strange robe directly made a decision, and then reached out to make a pleased gesture. All agreed? Yang Chen's face was stunned, and he also sneered in his heart. This guy seems to have agreed to all of them, but he must have other ideas in his heart. Yang Chen was not a naive boy, and he would trust the people in the demon sect unconditionally. Not a single one left. The man in the strange robe replied with certainty. It's been so long, I haven't asked the senior's name. I'm impolite. Yang Chen suddenly changed the topic and began to ask for the identity of the man in the strange robe. My surname is Li, and I have long forgotten my name. Others gave me the nickname Ying Mei. The man in the strange robe finally said his identity, but he still did not reveal the whole truth, just gave a surname and a nickname. You can call me Old Li. You don't have to avoid anything. Both sides claimed to be under, and there was no such thing as a junior in the demon continent. Whether it was Yang Chen or Ying Mei, they all called him this way. Yang Chen was not arrogant enough to call him Old Li. It was the first time they met, and their relationship had not reached that level. So this title could not be used casually. If it was Li Cheng, it would be fine for Yang Chen to call him Old Li, but this old guy definitely did not have this friendship. Senior Ying, this person under me, I think the senior has also investigated. Yang Chen said with a smile, doing business in the gathering point. We are honest with the old and the young. But this time the business is a bit big. Senior, do you think you should pay some deposit first? Deposit? Ying Mei's face was solemn, and his heart began to churn. According to reason, Yang Chen's request was not excessive at all, but it was not possible for Ying Mei. He had the idea of getting something for nothing from the beginning. Asking him to pay a deposit, wasn't this asking for his life? Chapter 1041. Young man, you haven't worked yet, and you want to be rewarded? This is not right. Ying Mei put on a sincere look and began to persuade Yang Chen. It's not a reward, it's just a deposit. Yang Chen carefully corrected Ying Mei's statement. It's to show the sincerity of the seniors and other seniors. You have so many requirements. How can I carry it with me? Ying Mei said a little angry, and his tone was a little unkind. I'm not in a hurry. Yang Chen replied with a smile. When Senior Ying pays the deposit, I will get up with the seniors. How much is the deposit? Ying Mei resisted the anger in his heart, but he did not intend to fall out with Yang Chen immediately. If he had enough things on him, he would give them to Yang Chun first, and it would not be too late to take them back after he deceived him to do the work. Deposit, just a little something will do. Yang Chen's face was easy to talk to, and the words he said made people comfortable to listen to, but then he put forward a specific request: just give me half first, and after the matter is done, I will pay the other half. Imei listened to Yang Chen's meaning of a little something, and he almost spat out a mouthful of old blood directly. Half is called a little something? The things that Yang Chen wanted, added up to the beginning and the end, if calculated in terms of spirit stones alone, had already exceeded tens of thousands of kilograms of high-grade spirit stones. If converted into top-grade spirit stones, it would be hundreds of kilograms. He was a master of the demon sect who came here to gain experience. How could he have such a net worth? Moreover, some things could not be bought even if there were spirit stones, such as those pill recipes and advanced fire seeds. Even if Yang Chun only wanted half as a deposit, Mei could not get it even if he beat him to death. Young man, you're being unreasonable. Mei didn't want to push things too far. After all, he needed Yang Chun to do things. If their relationship was too stiff and Yang Chun didn't put in the effort, it wouldn't look good. They had been planning this for hundreds of years, and they had only just discovered that Yang Chun was a cultivator who could purify devil chi. If Yang Chun did not cooperate, then the hundreds of years of preparation would go down the drain. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he still had to accommodate Yang Chun. Senior, it's just a deal between the two of us. If you're not willing, then just pretend this never happened. Yang Chun, on the other hand, put on a posture of not releasing the eagle until he saw the rabbit. In any case, it was not him who was in a hurry to ask for help, but Mei. Since that's the case, don't blame me for using some tricks. Mei let out a long sigh, as if he had foreseen something regretful. He shook his head repeatedly. AI, if you don't listen to your elders, you'll suffer losses right before your eyes. Young people are young people, always unable to see the situation clearly. While shaking his head, Mei's figure suddenly disappeared in front of Yang Chen's eyes, as if he had directly integrated into the jungle. It had to be said that this guy's concealment technique was indeed unique. It's useless, senior. You can't hide the devil chi on your body. Yang Chun also shook his head and said in a certain direction, "It's just a habit, great master. See you later." Mei's voice came from that direction, out of thin air. "Great master, you'd better worry about your few confidants and your friends first." "Oh." Yang Chun was not annoyed, just said, "Oh," and then said loudly, "Then please invite my friend first, as long as he is willing. I have no opinion." From the beginning, Mei used Li Cheng and the four women to threaten Yang Chun, and now it was still the same trick. Yang Chun was not worried at all. If the other party wanted him to work, it was impossible to kill them. Moreover, Yang Chun felt that for the four women, this experience might be a rare opportunity to gain experience. However, Mei was so unkind, Yang Chun did not mind him suffering a little, and took the initiative to focus on Li Cheng. These people want to deal with Li Cheng must be very exciting. As you wish, your friend will be brought to you soon. Mei's voice came from a farther place, and he seemed to be in a much better mood. Or he felt that since Yang Chun agreed to this condition, as long as he captured Li Cheng in the early Yuanying stage, it would not be too difficult. "I admire you." Yang Chun directly gave a thumbs up in that direction. Even if there was no one else around, Yang Chun still had an expression of admiration on his face, and finally added, "I hope we can see each other again." It was hard for Yang Chun not to admire someone who dared to hit Li Cheng so blatantly. This old Mei must have never heard of Li Cheng's power, but it was normal to think about it. What happened that day? Who had the face to say it? Since they didn't say it, then no one knew. It was understandable that Mei didn't know. Yang Chun was now looking forward to the scene of Mei meeting Li Cheng. He didn't know how Li Cheng would deal with this old Mei. Would he behead him with a sword, or would he break him in half with a punch? In short, there wouldn't be many opportunities to see Mei again. After Mei left, Yang Chun didn't have the mood to kill the demonic beasts immediately. Since the other party was willing to agree to Yang Chen's harsh conditions, It was obvious that he was planning something big, and it was obviously not something that Mei could support alone. Looking at Mei's appearance, he wasn't the kind of person who agreed to Yang Chen's request deliberately, but he was really willing to pay the price for the big benefits. Otherwise, there would be no such performance from Mei. At this point, Mei had already made it clear, but he was still unwilling to do anything to Yang Chen, which showed how much they valued Yang Chen. It must be known that the demon sects had never lacked means to control people's hearts, but those means would more or less cause some damage to the controlled people. For the sake of insurance, they would let Yang Chen go instead of directly controlling Yang Chen. This could only further prove that what they were plotting must have reached an earth-shattering level for them to act in such a manner. Otherwise, how could these old devils who had reached the Deshang stage be so easy to talk to? It was already good enough that they didn't capture Yang Chen on the spot and torture him. As for what these people wanted to do, Yang Chen was too lazy to care. The guys from the demon sects, even if they made a big deal, it had nothing to do with Yang Chen on the demon continent. It was better to continue his cultivation. If things were really worth participating in, he believed that Li Cheng would make the right decision. If Li Cheng was willing to join in, Yang Chen didn't mind taking a trip. The reason why he left the last condition was because of this consideration. All the choices seemed to have been handed over to the mysterious Li Cheng, and Yang Chen didn't think there was anything wrong with this. Chapter 1042. Mei didn't know that he had actually walked on the edge of death. He was in a good mood when he met Yang Chen, especially when he felt that this trip would be profitable, so he let him go. At this moment, Mei, who has made up his mind, was planning to discuss with some other people and grasp several women related to Yang Chen and Li Cheng in his hands, so he didn't have to worry about Yang Chen not giving in. Yang Chen continued to practice here, and the people of Mei had already started to make their move. It could be said that their efficiency was really high. It had only been less than 2 months since they separated, and Mei appeared in front of Yang Chen again. Appearing with Mei was Yang Chen's good friend, Li Cheng, in the eyes of Mei. However, when he appeared this time, Mei was not as arrogant as he was in front of Yang Chen last time. He was a little timid behind Li Cheng, and his face was careful. In Yang Chen's view, he looked like a servant leading the way. "Brother Yang, this time it's a bit interesting. Let's go and see." Li Cheng was not polite to Yang Chen and said straightforwardly, "Okay." Yang Chen didn't mind Li Cheng's invitation at all and agreed directly without thinking about it. Not far away, Mei looked at the two people with such a short exchange with a surprised face. He never dared to take a step forward and did not dare to say a word. Now in Mei's mind, there was only regret. If he knew that Li Cheng, who seemed to be in the early Yuanying stage, was such a terrifying character, he would not dare to provoke this master. The scene that happened that day, like a nightmare, kept reappearing in Mei's mind, so that he could not forget it until he died. He thought that a little junior in the early Yuanying stage, as long as Mei came out, he could definitely win easily. With such an idea in mind, Mei didn't even discuss it with others, but directly found his companion who was responsible for watching Li Cheng according to the secret record. The two did not make any preparations and appeared directly in front of Li Cheng. Two masters of the Deshang stage, if they wanted to find trouble with a junior in the Yuanying stage, what else did they need to prepare? They stopped Li Cheng and threatened him, forcing him to go with them and persuade Yang Chen. Li Cheng's response was also very refreshing. He just cut off the head of the master of the Deshang stage, who was stalking him with a sword, and then punched the shadow demon until he could no longer stand up. Only then did he ask what happened. Only then did Mei realize how powerful Li Cheng was. Under Li Cheng's little tricks, Mei finally knew what it meant to be worse than death. Not to mention the questions that Li Cheng had asked. Even the questions that Li Cheng hadn't asked were quickly spilled out like beans pouring out of a bamboo tube. What did it mean to only seek a quick death? At least in Mei's mind, the few times she was tortured by Li Cheng fully explained the meaning of these words. In the past, the high and mighty Deshang stage Devil Path Master always decided the life and death of countless people with a wave of his hand. In front of Li Cheng, he was a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. If he wanted him to live, he would live. If he wanted him to die, he would die. He thought that the means of his own Devil Path Master was not the best in the world, but at least it was unparalleled in the underground world. But in front of Li Cheng, he discovered that the things he knew were just the leftovers of others. If it weren't for Li Cheng to see that Ying Mei could quickly find the whereabouts of Yang Chun, at this moment, Ying Mei would have already become the blood food of a demonic beast. Ying Mei finally understood why Yang Chun would let Li Cheng decide. With Li Cheng, such a terrifying master, not to mention that he could cheat Yang Chun. Even if he gave a little less, it was estimated that Yang Chun would not do it. At the thought of the huge price proposed by Yang Chun, Ying Mei complained a little. If he knew this, he would have directly agreed to Yang Chun, and he would not have to take Li Cheng, this evil star. Now, even if he took the two to the destination, he didn't know how many complaints would fall. After all, when he promised Yang Chun, he did not discuss it with those people. Once those companions disagreed, how could he explain it? But in the current situation, could he afford a bargain with Yang Chun again? Li Cheng already knew everything. He did not behead him with a sword because he could lead the way. If he could not even do this well, was there any need for him to exist? Ying Mei never thought of running away. When he thought of the means that Li Cheng used to force him, he couldn't help but tremble. Although he was called Ying Mei, he absolutely believed that in front of Li Cheng, if he ran away, even if Li Cheng let him walk for an hour first, he would never escape the fate of losing his head. Being able to live until now, Ying Mei suddenly found that he was more afraid of death than anyone else. This feeling made him wonder just what he had cultivated to in the past. If he knew it would be like this, why did he do it? In addition to remorse, Ying Mei had no other thoughts. He could only obediently listen to Li Cheng, even if Li Cheng did not put any restrictions on him. Let's go. Yang Chun did not hesitate. With one word, he decided the rest of the journey. Since brotherly thinks it's good, let's go and have a look together. Li Cheng turned his face and just glanced at Ying Mei. Ying Mei immediately came over obediently, and after bowing to Yang Chun, he took the lead and led the two of them into the depths of the jungle. In the beginning, Ying Mei did not dare to go too fast, for fear that Yang Chun could not keep up. As for Li Cheng, he had already experienced his power. Even if he used his fastest speed, it was impossible to get rid of Li Cheng. But soon, Ying Mei discovered that not only Li Cheng, but even Yang Chen's speed was definitely not slow. No matter how fast he increased his speed, Yang Chun and Li Cheng always followed a certain distance behind him at a steady pace. In the end, Ying Mei had used all his strength and raised his speed to the extreme, but Yang Chun and Li Cheng were still so relaxed, not too fast or too slow. Even the two of them had the energy to chat while moving forward. It was completely different from Ying Mei, who was so tired that his tongue was almost hanging out. Even if Ying Mei was stupid, at this moment, he finally understood, and there was a burst of fear in his mind. Yang Chun and Li Cheng, these two young people who seemed to be only in the early Yuanying stage, were definitely two terrifying guys. He was so lucky that after provoking one, he had to take the initiative to provoke the second one. Even if he was tired of living, he shouldn't be so eager to reincarnate, right? At this time, Ying Mei had no other thoughts. He only wanted to be able to take the two to the destination safely, and he also had to spend a lot of effort to persuade others. Otherwise, if these two evil stars were to attack, not to mention that they had prepared for hundreds of years, even if they prepared for another 100 years, those benefits would not be theirs. Everything depends on whether those companions are on the right track and whether they cooperate. Chapter 1043. Along the way, Ying Mei was rushing at full speed, and there would be some demonic beasts that didn't have eyes rushing out. For these guys who blocked the road, Ying Mei did not dare to let Yang Chun and Li Cheng do anything, and directly killed these demonic beasts. Yang Chun and Li Cheng ignored Ying Mei. On the way, Li Cheng just told Yang Chun what Ying Mei was going to do. It was very simple to say that Ying Mei found the ruins of an ancient sect on the demon continent, which was sealed by a large seal, and they had found the entrance. Now, the only trouble was that if they were attacked by a very strong demonic chi, even these guys who had been through hundreds of battles couldn't bear that level of demonic chi. They could only look at the entrance, but couldn't enter. Therefore, these people were always looking for a master who could cope with the demonic chi to help them open the mysterious entrance. However, there were a lot of masters who knew about this, and everyone was on guard against each other. No one dared to leave easily, so it has not been solved until now. It wasn't until they heard about the appearance of Yang Chun that there was a glimmer of hope. Everyone quickly reached an agreement, and then sending Mei, who was the best at hiding and tracking, and several companions to bring Yang Chun to the site. That ancient sect even appeared earlier than the demonic Qi. Or it was because of the emergence of the demonic Qi that the ancient sect could not continue and was forced to seal the entire sect with a large mountain ceiling formation. Just by feeling a word or two passed down, everyone could be sure that there were countless good things in the sealed ruins, which was worth everyone waiting for many years of hard work. Things were generally like this, and the details could be ignored. The site was in a valley in the depths of the demon continent. From where Yang Chun and the others were, it would take at least half a year to get there. This was not counting the endless demonic beasts that they had to deal with on the way. However, for Ing Mei plus Yang Chun and Li Cheng, this was not a problem. Ing Mei's Deshang stage master realm allowed him to easily deal with the vast majority of the demonic beasts. As long as a demonic beast rushed out, they basically couldn't escape the fate of being killed by Ing Mei. Occasionally, there would be a few small fish that slipped through the net, but they were instantly killed by Li Cheng, not leaving a single living creature behind. Traveling at full speed, they arrived at their destination in less than half a year. Of course, they didn't forget to take a few detours along the way and brought along Yang Chen's 4 wives. Since there was such a good thing, wouldn't it be a pity not to bring the 4 girls along to experience it? On the way, Yang Chun thought that the shadow demon was too slow, so he asked Gong Sunling to take out the ship. The speed of the fortress ship startled Ing Mei. Only then did she ponder over what Yang Chun had said. Yang Chun told him to do whatever he wanted to his wives. Fortunately, his companions only followed from afar and didn't make a move. Otherwise, who knew what the result would be? Putting everything else aside, just based on the speed of this ship, if the other party wanted to escape, there was no way they could catch up. Of course, those who were chasing the 4 girls didn't have the qualifications to rush to the ruins. Now, only Yang Chun, the 4 girls, Li Cheng, and Ing Mei were on the ship. Ing Mei was directly thrown to the bow of the ship to lead the way, while Yang Chun and Li Cheng drank and ate heartily with some of the dishes that Gong Sunling made. The demonic beasts couldn't keep up with the speed of the fortress ship at all. Occasionally, there were a few demonic beasts that could fly and could threaten the speed of the fortress ship, but they would be directly killed by Ing Mei. Drinking to their heart's content, Li Cheng and Yang Chen's relationship had also become closer because they had been spending time together these days. With Yang Chen's intention to befriend him, the two of them quickly addressed each other as brothers. Li Cheng's reported age was slightly older than Yang Chen's, so Yang Chun regarded himself as the younger brother and Li Cheng as the older brother. Yang Chun still couldn't see through this brother of his, Li Cheng. However, as long as he had no malice towards Yang Chun, he would never refuse to have this kind of relationship with Li Cheng. Everyone was a cultivator, and there were not so many trivial formalities, let alone burning incense and kneeling to become brothers of the opposite sex. They just drank a cup and began to address each other as brothers. My family is deeply aware that our cultivation is not profound enough, so we can only come to the demon continent to kill and gain experience. Please give us some pointers, big brother. Yang Chun couldn't see through Li Cheng, but this didn't prevent him from knowing that Li Cheng had good stuff in his stomach. Therefore, he did not regard himself as an outsider and asked Li Cheng to guide the 4 women in their cultivation. All 4 sisters-in-law have excellent qualifications. It's rare that you have such luck with women, brother. Li Cheng didn't directly agree, but he didn't directly refuse. He just said these words. It had to be said that Li Cheng's vision was absolutely sharp. Without relying on anything to assist him, he had such insight. The 4 women listened quietly, and they also knew that Yang Chun would never talk nonsense. They were all intelligent people. When they heard Li Cheng's words, they immediately paid respect to their sworn brother. I'm happy today. I'll give the 4 sisters-in-law a few meeting gifts. Li Cheng laughed, waved his hand, and 4 white lights flew directly to the foreheads of the 4 women and drilled in almost without any hindrance. The sudden scene startled Yang Chun. If it weren't for the inner demon training with the help of the demonic energy, he might have exclaimed and stood up. Resisting the surprise, Yang Chun cast an inquiring look at Li Cheng. The four sisters-in-law's life source magic weapon seems to have just been tempered. This brother will give you a little help. When the tempering is completed, you can more or less improve the grade. Li Cheng acted as if he had done something insignificant. He picked up the wine cup and took a sip before explaining with a smile. Li Cheng's words were never false, and Yang Chun was overjoyed. The four women were also a little surprised, but seeing that Yang Chun was so happy, they naturally knew that it would not be false. They all smiled and thanked him one after another. Everyone toasted to this sworn brother. Speaking of which, it's still your luck. Such a good distiller's yeast. I don't know which old guy left it, but it's all yours. Li Cheng enjoyed it and filled his cup and took a big sip. Yang Chen's face was happy, but his heart was also secretly surprised. The four women were still tempering their life source magic weapon, and Li Cheng could use some unknown method to help them. This kind of method was simply unheard of. This cheap sworn brother was probably an incredible person. If Big Brother likes it, I will naturally offer it with both hands. Of course, Yang Chun would not be stingy with the distiller's yeast. He directly took out the gourd and was about to divide the distiller's yeast in half. As a result, as soon as he took out the gourd, it was snatched by Li Cheng. With Yang Chen's current strength, he didn't even have a chance to hold the gourd. I was wondering who did it. It turns out to be the private collection of these old guys. No wonder. Li Cheng took the gourd and played with it, blurting out. Chapter 1044. Li Cheng's action once again shocked Yang Chun. The gourd was in his own hands. Even if Yang Chun had cultivated the yellow turban strongman body, refining technique to the level of overturning the river, he couldn't grasp the gourd. It was easily grabbed by Li Cheng. How terrifying Li Cheng was, it could be imagined. There were also many things in the gourd that were incredible. The first was spiritual solution, 7th metal spiritual solution, 9th water spiritual solution, 10th water spiritual solution. These were all described as lakes. Such a huge amount of origin spiritual solution. If people knew it, wouldn't it turn the sky upside down? But in a flash, Yang Chun calmed down. With the strength and insight shown by Li Cheng, it was estimated that a trivial origin spiritual solution could not be seen in his eyes. Sure enough, as Yang Chun expected, after Li Cheng got the gourd, he recognized that it was the work of the Dragon Clan from the refining technique. Listening to his tone, it seemed that he was a little dissatisfied with some of the guys in the Dragon Clan. I have read some records. These old guys of the Dragon Clan are afraid that others will know their nest and hide it very secretly. Holding the gourd in his hand and rubbing it a few times, Li Cheng said with some envy, when they ascended, they would never tell others where the treasure is. I didn't expect it to benefit you, brother. Good luck, just good luck. Yang Chen didn't know what to say. Even if it was his own wife, he didn't tell them that he was reborn and became an executioner of the heavenly court. Naturally, he wouldn't tell Li Cheng. A good thing is a good thing, half of it when we meet. Li Cheng and Yang Chun, this new brother, were not polite at all and directly said the words of half of it when they met. When those old guys brewed these wines, they were aiming to compete with the jade nectar, but even they didn't taste it themselves. They all came to you, brother. Ha ha. It just so happens that I don't have anything good to filial piety to my big brother. These are my filial piety. Li Cheng said bluntly, but Yang Chun didn't take it to heart. There were some things that he wouldn't worry about if he thought it through. He simply followed Li Cheng's words and turned the so-called half into a brother's filial piety for his big brother. Li Cheng's words also shocked Yang Chun. The distiller's yeast brewed by the Dragon King was actually planning to compete with the heavenly court's jade nectar. Yang Chun didn't know about this at all. Of course, after Yang Chun ascended to immortality in his previous life, the Dragon King had already ceased to exist. In this life, he had only met the Dragon King for a short while, so it was impossible for him to know these secrets. On the other hand, Yang Chun could not figure out how Li Cheng knew these inside stories. It was just that Li Cheng was a mysterious expert that people couldn't see through. Presumably, There were some records passed down from generation to generation in the family. How can I accept this? Li Cheng was not an ignorant person. Although others could only find what Yang Chen wanted others to see in Yang Chen's gourd. But who was Li Cheng? How could he not find the many spiritual fluids in it? He was a little surprised, and his face changed. Big brother has given the benefits to the 4 sisters-in-law. I haven't thanked you yet. Yang Chen was open-minded. Li Cheng could upgrade the level of those magic weapons when the 4 women were quenching their life source magic weapons. This gift was enough to match all the spiritual fluids. Everyone understood that the improvement of the life source magic weapon was by no means an easy thing. It took years of quenching to achieve it. Li Cheng just shot out a white light, and it was completed in a flash. He didn't know how much time he saved for the 4 women. This was not even counting. The more powerful the life source magic weapon was, the more powerful its combat effectiveness would be in the future. On average, the upgrade of the magic weapon by a big level was equivalent to giving the 4 women an extra life. Compared with the spiritual fluids, it was natural that the lives of the 4 women were more important to Yang Chen. That is a greeting gift. Naturally, it can't be compared. Li Cheng laughed and didn't say much. He just took out a jade bottle from the chinquin bag on his body and held it in his hand. Big brother, I'd just like to drink a few mouthfuls of the best wine. Your distiller's yeast is really rare, so big brother will not be polite. As he spoke, Li Cheng took Yang Chen's gourd and put the mouth of the gourd against the mouth of the clean bottle and poured it, just like 2 drinkers holding a gourd of wine to share. Only Yang Chen knew what the amount of distiller's yeast in the gourd was. A huge lake was poured like this. It made people speechless. Li Cheng was really not polite at all, but the speed was quite fast. He poured half of it in 2 or 3 times. After pouring it, he picked up the bottle and shook it twice. His face was full of joy. Next, Li Cheng's actions made Yang Chen somewhat confused. He took the jade bottle and still put the mouth of the bottle against the mouth of the gourd, but this time he poured it from the bottle into the gourd. Yang Chen didn't know what Li Cheng was pouring into it. But with Li Cheng's vision, the liquid that could be collected in the jade bottle containing the distiller's yeast would definitely not be an ordinary thing. When I traveled around the world, I found a lot of good water. Whether it is used to make wine or alchemy, it is the best. I can't let others take advantage of it. Li Cheng said, as he poured it into the gourd for Yang Chen. If it was just some good water, Yang Chen could accept it with a clear conscience. Exchanging so much distiller's yeast for some of the best spiritual spring water, it couldn't be said that it was a loss or a gain. After all, it was just some courtesy between brothers. I saw that among your flying sword collection, there is one that uses a little live soil. Li Cheng looked at Yang Chen and said without raising his head, "It's just that the live soil is too little. Fortunately, I still have a little here. You can use it to refine your flying sword. It should be of some benefit." Li Cheng's words were understated, but in the ears of Yang Chen, it was no less than a great bell. That was the live soil, the magic weapon used by Gun to control the flood. Although the flood control was not successful, the name of the live soil had spread all over the world. Ming Guangrao of the Taishaman had spent a long time to find a little live soil. According to Yang Chen's estimation, it was only a few millimeters at most. If it was refined into a flying sword, it would already be the best flying sword. Now Li Cheng actually wanted to give him a little so that he could refine a flying sword. This was simply too surprising. Yang Chen could completely predict that the little live soil that Li Cheng mentioned would definitely be a jaw-dropping amount. And the following facts were also placed in front of him like iron. Looking at the little live soil in Li Cheng's mouth in front of him, Yang Chen suddenly had a feeling that he had made a fortune. Even if he had collected so much origin spiritual liquid, Yang Chen had never felt like this before. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was ecstatic. No matter who it was, if they suddenly saw 10 kilograms of live soil in front of them, they would probably have the same feeling. It was definitely a kind of happiness that was smashed by a golden pie falling from the sky. Chapter 1045. 10 gene of live soil. This value could no longer be calculated by spirit stones. No matter who has 10 gene of live soil, no matter what kind of spiritual root he has, there will be no other way to deal with it except for his own use or as a family heirloom. Now, Li Cheng was in front of everyone and generously gave 10 gene of live soil to Yang Chun. The generosity and the heroism were unparalleled. Even Yang Chun, a knowledgeable guy, when he picked up the live soil, his hands couldn't help but tremble slightly. With the cultivation base of the middle stage of Force Surging River, it seemed that holding 10 gene of live soil felt heavy. How could this be described as a big gift? It was simply a super luxurious heavy gift. With his 10 gene of live soil, Yang Chen's live soil flying sword could definitely be improved to the point where it could be comparable to the first wood Penglai Divine Wood flying sword. It must be known that the Penglai Divine Wood flying sword was refined from a whole Penglai Divine Wood. It was a complete Divine Wood, and 10 gene of live soil could be comparable to the whole Divine Wood. It was already heaven-defying. However, Yang Chen's surprise was not over yet, and then Li Cheng's words made him fall into a sluggish state again. You're a fire cultivator. You don't lack fire seeds. However, the two most suitable fire seeds here, you should not have them yet. I don't feel any kind of aura from you. Li Cheng said very impolitely, and did not conceal the fact that Yang Chun was almost unconcealed in front of him. I have a lot of fire seeds. They're all grades. I don't know which two. Yang Chun asked with a smile. Yang Chen's fire seeds had indeed been a lot. From the 1st grade to the 7th grade fire seeds, the Dao Sex fire seeds were almost collected. It was not possible to say that all of them were there, but 80% of the fire seeds should already be in the hands of Yang Chun. However, Li Cheng said that there were two most suitable fire seeds here. Yang Chun did not have them, but Yang Chen's interest was aroused. Two kinds of 5th grade fire seeds. 3rd fire peach flower karma fire, 4th fire red lotus karma fire. Li Cheng did not keep them guessing and directly gave the answer with a smile. As soon as the term hellfire entered Yang Chen's ears, Yang Chun was terrified. To put it simply, the karmic fire was the fire that burned sinners. Regardless of whether it was the peach blossom karmic fire or the red lotus karmic fire, legend had it that as long as one had a trace of evil thoughts, they would be burned to ashes by the karmic fire. Such a fire seed, even if it was Yang Chun, did not dare to touch it, let alone others. Who could guarantee that he wouldn't even have evil thoughts in his heart? Other than rocks, there was probably no other living thing that could do it. If there really was such a person, then it was certain that there would be no inner demons that would bother him. No one dared to touch the fire seed, so naturally, no one would be able to collect it. Although Yang Chun searched the world's fire seeds, these two kinds of hellfire were rated as 5th grade fire seeds for some reason, but no one could really use them. Even if no one had seen it, it was just like Yang Chen's Yin-Yang Heaven Burning Fire. There was a legend, but no one had ever seen it. How is that possible? Yang Chun had heard of these two names, but he had never seen them. Not only that, even in the process of fusing the Yin-Yang Heaven Burning Fire from scratch in this life, he did not think about fusing the Red Lotus Karmic Fire and the Peach Blossom Karmic Fire. What a joke! He wanted to control the fire seed, not be burned to ashes by the fire seed. What's impossible about this? Li Cheng has always had a smiling expression, and this time was no exception. He also replied with a smile, "It's just a 5th grade fire seed. There is nothing special about it. That's the karmic fire. Evil thoughts can't be aroused." Yang Chun looked at Li Cheng, his sworn brother, and was a little speechless. Even the idea of the karmic fire was not an ordinary kind of fierce. "Oh, evil thoughts. What is good? What is evil?" Li Cheng asked with a smile. "If you understand this, then you don't have to worry about the difference between good and evil thoughts, and you don't have to worry about the karmic fire burning you. Please explain, big brother." With such an opportunity, if Yang Chun didn't know how to ask for advice, then he would be a fool, so he immediately climbed the pole and asked. "Good and evil are divided into two. It's just your own so-called moral code." Li Cheng shook his head disapprovingly and explained to Yang Chun in detail. "In this world, is there any completely correct standard to judge good and evil? Lying is evil, but in order to cover up the illness of relatives and friends, out of good intentions, it is also good. But if the person who is deceived doesn't understand, isn't it evil?" With a very simple example, Li Cheng explained the difficulty of finding a standard. If there is no standard to judge good and evil, then isn't good and evil just empty talk. As long as the starting point is good, it won't be evil, right? Yang Chun asked cautiously. Good question. Li Cheng flicked his finger and asked with a smile. Then I ask you, when in danger, a mother lets her young son escape and sacrifice herself. Is this considered good? Yes. Yang Chen nodded, of course. Then for a son, using his mother's life to exchange for his own life, isn't that very unfilial? Filial piety is the first of all virtues. Such an unfilial person must be guilty of a lot of evil, right? Li Cheng asked again. This? Yang Chun was suddenly stumped. According to Li Cheng's standards, it was indeed difficult to let go. Or, this is because the target is different. It may be a bit troublesome. Then, let's go back to the mother. Li Cheng spoke with a smile from beginning to end. For the sake of her son, a mother is willing to sacrifice herself. This is good. But if in order to save her son, she blocked the escape of others, causing more people to lose their lives, then what she did is good or evil. There was no other thought in Yang Chen's mind, only following Li Cheng's words. This question seemed very interesting. Even the four women listening at the side fell into deep thought. Human cultivators have human cultivators' moral standards. Killing people is evil, killing bad people is good, but being deceived and killing good people is the opposite, it is evil. Do you think it can be justified by saying that doing good with the heart, even though good is not rewarded, doing evil without the heart, even though evil is not punished? Li Cheng asked again, good, good, evil, evil. How can it be so easy to say clearly? Even if it is done out of good intentions. In this world, there are a lot of people who do bad things with good intentions, isn't it? Doing bad things with good intentions. This is indeed a matter that makes people speechless. But it can't be denied that no matter in which realm, such things are endless. There's never been a time when it stopped. Actually, in the end, it is just the heart of Tao. Li Cheng concluded in the end, as long as you firmly believe that what you're doing is right, then there is no harm in continuing on. What is the heart of Tao? This is the heart of Tao. It is just indomitable perseverance. Even if you are a devil, as long as you firmly believe that killing and arson is right, then killing and arson is your Tao. It is your heart of Tao. Transcending the tribulation and ascending is just around the corner. Chapter 1046. If the devil's actions can also be achieved, wouldn't the world be in chaos? This time, it was not Yang Chun who asked the question, but Gao Yu, one of the four women who were listening next to him. How do you know that the person killed by the devil is not a bad person who will do evil in the future? Li Cheng's words were very philosophical, of course. It also meant that it was unfathomable. If it had to be said in layman's terms, perhaps it would be incomprehensible. Gao Yu no longer asked questions, but began to think. To be honest, the dialogue between Yang Chun and Li Cheng made the four women have some insights. Even Yang Chun himself seemed to have figured out a lot of things. The so-called good thoughts and evil thoughts, since they're just thoughts, then as long as there's no action, they're just thoughts. Li Cheng smiled and comforted Yang Chun. The hellfire is just a kind of fire seed, and there is no wisdom how to judge whether it is good or evil. Could it be? Yang Chen's heart suddenly moved, and he figured out a lot of things. Li Cheng smiled and gave Yang Chun an encouraging look. Yang Chen suddenly had more confidence, and then said, could it be that this hellfire will only backfire when you have a guilty conscience? It's a little close. Li Cheng clapped his hands and gave Yang Chun a very positive answer. As long as your ideas are not put into practice, there will be no impact on the outside world, and you will naturally not have a guilty conscience. The so-called good thoughts and evil thoughts are just to see if you have regrets. In this world, who can never regret? Yang Chun sighed and said, there are always some things that people can't let go. What can I do if I regret? Can I change what has happened? Li Cheng stared at Yang Chun with a meaningful look and said with a smile, just stick to your heart. If you are overcautious on the road of cultivation, then what is the cultivation? Go and live an honest life in the mortal world. What is the heart? Yang Chun suddenly asked Li Cheng solemnly. What I don't regret is my conscience. Li Cheng gave an answer that seemed to have been said before without any hesitation. Then he stretched out his hand, and two oil lamps with weak flames appeared in his hand. These two types of karmic fire are the most suitable here. Take them. Thank you, big brother. This time, Yang Chun thanked Li Cheng very formally. The words just now made Yang Chun feel like the clouds had parted to see the bright moon. His state of mind naturally improved, and this bow was a sincere gratitude. It's just a small matter. It's not worth mentioning, Li Cheng said in his usual cheerful tone. We drink more happily. As he spoke, Li Cheng threw the gourd to Yang Chun. Yang Chun took the gourd, but subconsciously probed it with his spiritual consciousness, intending to see how much of his distiller's yeast was missing. But when he probed, he was stunned on the spot. In the gourd, half of the distiller's yeast was gone, but a few other liquids were added. Li Cheng said that he had found a few spiritual springs when he traveled around the world and gave them to Yang Chun. Now in the gourd, there were a few gurgling springs that had slowly formed a few small lakes. This was not what surprised Yang Chun. What surprised Yang Chun was another small lake. Perhaps it couldn't be described as a lake. It was just a small pond, a few feet in radius, and it didn't look very big. But this small pond was a kind of liquid that made Yang Chun feel very familiar, but somewhat strange. Yang Chun just carefully explored it and immediately knew the name of this liquid. Eighth Metal Spiritual Solution. This was one of the two original spiritual solutions that Yang Chun couldn't find. Eighth Metal Spiritual Solution. He didn't know where Li Cheng got it. Although it was not as outrageous as the seventh metal spiritual solution and 10th water spiritual solution that Yang Chun got from Tai Bai Jinxing and the Dragon Palace, so much eighth metal spiritual solution was enough for Yang Chun to take a bath. I took some of your original spiritual solution, and naturally, I have to make up for it. Of course, Li Cheng knew why Yang Chun was surprised now. He smiled and said with a glass of wine, "Courtesy is reciprocal. It just happens that I lack some 9th water and 10th water and 1st wood spiritual solution on hand. I took some of them and used these 8th metal spiritual solutions to supplement them. Take it without saying anything. I will punish you with 3 cups of wine." Li Cheng said that he took it without saying anything, but there was no guilt on his face. He took the cup and poured 3 cups of Jade Dragon wine in succession. They were all drunk in one gulp. His face was smiling as if it had never happened. Yang Chun certainly would not care about this little thing with Li Cheng. What's more, Li Cheng gave Yang Chun a great opportunity. Seeing that the great Yin and Yang 5 elements secret art was in sight, how could Yang Chun care about this little thing that was not worth mentioning? "Thank you, big brother." Yang Chun said thanks this time and did not thank him again. He just picked up the wine glass and drank a few cups with Li Cheng. "Big brother, you can't favor one and discriminate against the other." Gai was obviously the best among the 4 women. Seeing that Yang Chun and Li Cheng were now happy, she also came forward and gave a toast to Li Cheng. Then she said, "We still need big brother's diligent guidance for our cultivation." The other 3 women were not themselves. When they heard the song, they immediately lined up and toasted one by one. Li Cheng was very forthright as he drank the wine. "In fact, all of you have excellent qualifications, and your husband let you practice the original cultivation method. In this regard, there is nothing to point out." After Li Cheng waited for all 4 women to drink a round, he said, "In the future, as long as the Yin and Yang 5 elements of the original cultivation method is learned, there will be no more problems. However, cultivation is not only a matter of realm and cultivation method, but also a matter of many practical applications." Li Cheng looked at Yang Chun and did not treat Yang Chun's 4 wives as outsiders. As long as the method can achieve the goal, it is a good method. The move that can kill the enemy is a good move. There is no need to stick to the realm of cultivation. In this regard, if you have any questions, you can ask them and we can discuss them together. The words were polite. It was a discussion, but everyone understood that this was already a promise to give advice. Of course, the specific advice still depended on what kind of questions the 4 women could ask. When Li Cheng said this, everyone was overjoyed. "There are still some days to go, little brother. You could try to use the 2 kinds of hellfire." After agreeing to the 4 women, Li Cheng turned to Yang Chun and said, "These 2 kinds of hellfire are better than your earth core fire and mysterious wood fire. After saying this, Li Cheng seemed to feel a little incredulous and asked directly, "No, little brother, you have so many fire seeds in your hands. Why do you only use these two kinds of third-grade fire seeds as your life source fire seeds, and not the higher-grade fire seeds? Could it be that there's a reason for this? Or have you encountered any problems that cannot be solved?" Chapter 10:47. When Li Cheng asked this, Yang Chun was also surprised. For a long time, Li Cheng gave Yang Chun the impression that he knew everything. He did not have the slightest secret in front of Li Cheng and was completely seen through by him. But this time, it was obvious that Li Cheng was wrong. The yin-yang heaven-burning fire could simulate any kind of flame, or it could be said that it was not a simulation. It itself contained the characteristics of that kind of flame, and naturally, it could bring out that kind of flame to the fullest. Yang Chun always did not want others to know his own details, so the life source fire that was shown externally was also two kinds. The third fire, mysterious wood fire, and the fourth fire, earth core fire, were all third-grade fire seeds. They were not very clever fire seeds, but whether it was the mysterious wood fire or the earth core fire, they were very suitable for alchemy to process medicinal materials. This gave the impression of outsiders that Yang Chun was a very pure alchemy master. Who would have thought that this deliberate effect could even fool Li Cheng? It was rare for Li Cheng to have a place that he did not understand, that he could not see through Yang Chun. Yang Chun was naturally happy for a long time, and then he released the yin-yang heaven-burning fire that had been formed. The two fire dragons flew up and down beside Yang Chun. The two purple and cyan fire dragons were like living things, except that because the grade was still low, it was impossible to simulate all the details of the dragon. Looking from a distance, they really thought that they were two living fire dragons. Even Li Cheng couldn't help but widen his eyes and carefully observe the two life source fire dragons of Yang Chun. He was so stunned that he could no longer speak. But Li Cheng was Li Cheng, and soon he saw some clues from it. Suddenly, his face changed greatly. He pointed to the two fire dragons of Yang Chun and asked with some uncertainty, This is not the yin-yang heaven-burning fire, right?" Li Cheng's words made Yang Chun feel awe, especially for the family or sect that taught Li Cheng. The yin-yang heaven-burning fire was a legend that only existed in the heavenly court. He could even know about it. This was by no means an ordinary deep heritage. Sometimes, Yang Chun even wondered if Li Cheng was a consciousness clone of someone from the immortal dimension that had descended here, but he quickly dispelled this thought. That was impossible. When a consciousness clone from the celestial realm descended to the lower realm, it would lose more than 99% of its memories. How could it be like this? Big Brother really has a discerning eye. Yang Chun could not help but sigh. Li Cheng was really knowledgeable. How could other people call out the name of yin-yang heaven-burning fire? You really surprised me. Li Cheng's incredible gaze once again stared at Yang Chun, and then turned to the two fire dragons, carefully observing. Rich purple, pure green. Not bad, not bad. This foundation is not bad. After looking at it for a while, Li Cheng finally gave a comment. Then he asked, "Why is it only fourth grade? Why don't you fuse with high-grade fire seeds? You still have a lot of high-grade fire seeds." "I'm afraid that my foundation isn't good enough, so I don't dare to take any risks." Yang Chun is also telling the truth. For Li Cheng, a master who can easily control the hellfire, he also asked for advice. "I want to fuse more low-grade fire seeds, and then use high-grade fire seeds. The foundation has been laid to this point. In fact, it's almost there." Li Cheng nodded first and agreed with Yang Chen's statement. Then, after carefully observing the two fire dragons, he gave such a conclusion: you can fuse high-grade fire seeds. In the future, when there's a low-grade fire seed, and then fuse it, it will not affect the quality of yin-yang heaven-burning fire. Yang Chen already had the intention to fuse the fifth-grade fire seed, but he had not done it. Now that even Li Cheng said this, he immediately made up his mind. It just so happens that the Red Lotus Hellfire and the Peach Blossom Hellfire are the most suitable fire seeds for you in this demon continent. They have a unique way to deal with the devil energy. During this time on the road, I will help you guard and fuse these two fire seeds, and it will also be a little more insurance. Li Cheng exhorted, and at the same time gave Yang Chun another surprise. I happen to have 2 ways to control the hellfire here. You can study it first. With the good and evil thoughts that Li Cheng had told Yang Chun before, plus the method of controlling the hellfire given here, combined with the experience of Yang Chen's previous life, controlling the hellfire was not a problem at all. The only thing that needed to be considered was the time. If they rushed all the way, maybe they would arrive at the destination, and there would be no way to successfully absorb the fusion. However, this was not a problem at all for Li Cheng. Ying didn't even dare to breathe in front of Li Cheng. Didn't he let Li Cheng say east and west? Li Cheng asked him to find a suitable place for the 4 women to gain experience. Wasn't it just a matter of saying a few words? As for delaying the time, it was even easier. Ying only needed to send a message back to inform other companions that the people had been found and were on the way. Now that the people had been obtained, there was no need to worry about other things. They were all masters of the Deshang stage. It was normal to wait for a year and a half, and no one would be impatient. In the following days, the 4 women practiced under the guidance of Li Cheng, and Yang Chun began to concentrate on absorbing and merging the Red Lotus Hellfire and Peach Blossom Hellfire. The process was the same as that of the low-grade fire seeds. They all began to be absorbed by the profound spirit furnace, and then used the profound spirit furnace as a buffer to integrate it into the yin-yang heaven-burning fire. However, even if the process was the same, the difficulty was beyond the reach of the low-grade fire seeds. The 5th-grade fire seed in the mortal world could already be regarded as the best that could be used for cultivation. In his previous life, Yang Chun had only integrated a 5th-grade true sun fire, and he was able to cross the tribulation and ascend, and later became a great principal golden immortal. The power of the 5th-grade fire seed could be seen. In his previous life, when Yang Chun absorbed the true sun fire, it could be said that it was a narrow escape from death. At that time, Yang Chun had to take this huge risk in order to revenge, and succeeded by luck. Although the difficulty of integrating the 5th-grade fire seed in this life would never be as high as in his previous life, this was not the true sun fire that Yang Chun was familiar with, but the Red Lotus Hellfire and Peach Blossom Hellfire that had just been received. Even Yang Chun had to give it his all. It was a relatively simple process to absorb the 2 kinds of fire seeds into the profound spirit furnace. After all, as long as Yang Chun's Tao heart was strong, he would not be affected by it. The profound spirit furnace was also a dead object, and there would be no good and evil thoughts. Even if the hellfire was powerful, it was impossible to burn a dead object that had no thoughts. But the next thing could not be so simple. The fusion of the 5th-grade fire seeds, especially these 2 kinds of hellfire, a little carelessness would result in the consequences of the backlash. Before the beginning, Yang Chun even had to use the profound spirit furnace to control the 2 kinds of hellfire, refining some messy medicinal pills, familiarizing himself with the various medicinal properties, and familiarizing himself with the fire properties of the 2 kinds of hellfire. Until Yang Chun had mastered the control of the 2 kinds of fire seeds, Yang Chun began the process of integration.